let's get this thing started. I always wanted to do a podcast, and for some reason or another, we never did, right? I think it's a good time to do it right now because a lot of people are home and they're spending time at home and they're looking for things to do. And there's a lot of interesting things to talk about. I mean, I know that most of you guys watching right now are here because you guys are somehow interested in batteries, but I know that you also have other interests and you're also being affected by those stuff that's happening right now, right? So I have with me, I have Brian, and Brian, say hi to everybody, Brian.
How's it going, everybody?
For those of you guys that don't know, Brian has been helping me for a while, you know, just kind of do some of the branding things for the channel. That's what he does, and we'll have him talk a little bit about what is it that he does and stuff. Like he said, we do similar things, right? But you do it for clients, you do it for other people. I kind of been doing that, kind of like DIY, the thing, kind of branding myself, starting to go on YouTube and the whole thing, and with the company and stuff, and yeah, so that's what he does, and he recently got laid off also.
Yeah,
So
I was working with the company full time, and so I put my my own work on hold for a while, and then yeah, as soon as the COVID-19 hit, it was like boom, and a lot of people got that too. So that's one of the things that I've been thinking about, without getting too much into the content, is like how to lend support to some of the, you know, at least mentally support, you know.
To who? Like to your clients or to other people and stuff?
Just people who are impacted, you know, because right now it's like we're used to when things are just normal, you know, and just kind of doing our day-to-day thing. Everything's shifting right now, and kind of people are trying to figure it out. And that's when you need new ideas. That's when you need people who kind of see things differently, to kind of say, hey, you know, let's deal with the unknown, because some of us are more comfortable dealing with the unknown.
Yeah.
So
it's gonna be tough, like for everyone, right? I mean, things are weird. Everybody's home. It feels fun, I think, for a little while, right? I mean, you go home and you're watching Netflix. But I think, like, statistically speaking, I think most Americans are not prepared. They're like living check to check. And I mean, that's going to be tough because now if you're home for 2 weeks, now that's half of your check there. That means you're going to need. And I know that we have this stimulus package coming thing or whatever from the government. But I think people are probably worried, which means they're not going to be spending money. Which means that, like, whatever you offer as a service, probably, I don't know, they're going to be hesitant to spend money on that.
yeah, I think it's going to be more, people are just going to change the way that they look at their purchases. Even though this is not like a, you know, self-promotional thing, but it's just the reality of like the new situation now. People are going to change the way that they perceive the value of products were, you know, from a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Right? There was certain things that they perceived as higher value, and now it's like those things are no longer valuable anymore because they're thinking about like
There's
N95 masks and things.
There's
like
priorities, right?
paper. You know, it's like, you know, they're not thinking about, you know, their new electronic devices necessarily. They're thinking about like paper. So it's like,
paper.
yeah, and like the value has shifted incredibly. So it's like,
By the way, maybe you can tell me this. What the hell's up with the toilet paper thing? Like, this is not a diarrhea virus. Like, why are people freaking out over toilet paper? Maybe, do you know?
I don't know, but I can guess.
You can guess.
Because I like to think about, you know, psychology and how people process information and how they interpret it, and I think it's just a panic reaction, you know? Is they're thinking like, what do I need to make sure I don't run out of in case I'm locked in for, you know, 2 months, and then they're you know, picturing
what they do.
well, they're picturing what life would be like without being able to, you know, wipe themselves.
But I mean, like food, right? It's the number one. Well, I mean, water probably is the number one thing you should be stocking up on, right? Water. Bottle. I guess bottled water is a thing, right? But just water to drink. Food is the second.
Yeah.
Shelter should be third. Toilet paper is up there. I guess we all go to the restroom every day. So probably some of us multiple times.
It's funny because it almost seems like it's more of a, it's for their mental health almost. Isn't it? It sounds strange, but it's like they need toilet paper for them to be mentally healthy more than, physically healthy. Like knowing they have toilet paper is like knowing that they're gonna be just fine. They too many Charmin commercials or something.
It's crazy. I think people are crazy. I mean, look, I think you should have toilet paper. It's important.
I agree.
I think it would be very miserable, I think, if you don't have toilet paper, right? But I don't know if that's what you should be hoarding and fighting about at the store, right? And which seemed that that's what it was. I don't know. I don't know if it's just because it's bulky and so it seems like you're just hoarding toilet paper, but you're also buying equal amount of like canned food and whatever. It just doesn't seem because it's I don't know. It's such a weird thing. To me, I'm like, what is going on here? I don't get it. But definitely it shows that people are hiding they're freaking out right now, right? And that's gonna affect us all, I think. And I'm kind of freaking out. I don't want to like spend money right now. It's like, am I going to be able to keep money? I know that my thing kind of goes along with being prepared, right? So my thing with batteries and emergency power packs and stuff, like that's a thing. Like right now we're freaking out, but life is kind of normal still. Like there's nothing weird. If the power goes out, if the grid goes down, all hell breaks loose, right? Like all of a sudden now that's like level 2 hysteria, I think that goes, because I think most of us, now we don't have Netflix to watch movies, and we don't have the internet, and
that's like the thing that's holding people's sanity is like, it's like that they can at least have their entertainment still, and it's like, I'm at least home, being distracted by my entertainment.
Yeah.
But then as soon as you cut that out, then they're afraid that they're going to go back into the 1800s, and is life going to go back in that direction? Obviously, it's probably not, but it's.
I mean, it could
potentially, but it's. I think that's what. It's almost like people are mentally preparing.
Yeah.
For this situation to.
So I think I'll be fine, you know what I mean? Like, because one thing, I'm DIY, right? So everything that I do is kind of a hack. Everything that I do is also on the cheap. So I'm not really hidden, Yes, we own a Tesla at home now. We have a thing. I have a warehouse now. I have a few cars that I bought. But my mentality is still I'm not like a rich guy. You know what I mean? Like, you could probably give me $1 million. I'm still not going to think like a rich person, right? I'm still like, it takes a long time for you to think like a millionaire or whatever, right? Just because you become a millionaire. I'm not a millionaire. I'm not rich. I don't have a lot of money. I'm always hustling. I'm always trying to figure out how to stretch, do the most with the least amount, because I've always have the least amount, I think. So I think I'll be fine. You know what I mean? Like struggling, hustling. It's just, I'm no stranger to that, right? Like, I mean, my whole life I've been doing that, right?
Likewise.
Ups and downs, right? But I think, and then also the fact that my message is always to be prepared. Like, it goes along with this time. So I think people are going to hear that and they're going to be like, okay, so things are rough right now, but if the power goes out, then at least you got to have something, like what's important to you, like lights. I think lights are really important. I think people don't understand how important lights is.
Yeah, right? I think it's like, it doesn't hit us until we actually power goes out for 6 hours, and then you start thinking about, oh my gosh, I have a refrigerator that runs on electricity.
Yeah.
And then it's little things like the lights go off, that's not such a big deal. But then you start thinking about, wait, electricity, refrigerator, the food's gonna spoil.
Yeah.
You may have, your alarm clock is not going to go off in the morning so you can get up to go to work. Like, there's certain things that start to trigger, like, oh my gosh, this is the lights going off is a bigger thing than just the lights.
Well, I think lights, it's one of these things that, yeah, nobody cares if it's during the day. Like, if the power goes out for 4 hours and it's during the day, no one cares. You're just like, doing things like, oh, it's annoying. I can't go on the internet. I can't do this. I can't watch TV. But, like, extended periods of time, like, most of us haven't experienced nights, you know, or at least 4 or 6 hours or whatever, without power, without lights at home in the darkness.
Yeah, like unless you're camping. Like if you're camping, but ready to be camping. Like when
you're in that mode.
Yeah, you're in the mode. But when you're at home, and then the lights will go off, and your toaster isn't working, that's when it seems to hit home. Like, oh my gosh, this is not the same context. I'm in a different place. I'm not ready to kind of be out. Living like a wild.
Yeah, I think mentally. Also, that is like when you spend a few days without lights, right, in the darkness, and quite a few hours in the darkness, because you think, I mean, as soon as it becomes dark, you don't go to bed, right? You don't know. We usually don't know. We don't pay attention to the amount of time that we are awake, that we are conscious, while it's dark outside, right? Because we're never in the dark. We're always with light. We only turn the lights off when we want to go to sleep, like when we're like ready, and even then. We keep a night light on a thing, you know what I mean? So I think mentally it's going to take a hit on us, I think, if we get to spend more than a couple of days without power. And I think people don't get it. I think it's going to take for them to experience it and they're like, oh my
that's
God.
what it is. It's like we've been disconnected from nature to such a point that we're used to being surrounded by this kind of artificial landscape that we've created. Right? Not that it's not useful.
It's artificial day.
Yeah, it's an artificial
but it's
daytime.
at night.
Yeah, it's extended artificial day.
Yeah.
That's a good way of looking at it. And we're not used to having to deal with the actual length of the day, and then the lights go off, and then now you got to deal with the actual night.
Yeah.
And then it's almost like if we're deep inside, we're still little children who are afraid of the dark.
The darkness, the boogeyman. So I think I'll be fine, because that is what I'm helping people do, prepare for that eventuality. Mm-hmm. And if anything, it's closer than ever. Like that's it's more real, I think, to the regular population than just us crazies. The preppers are the far they're the far people that are prepared, right, to the far right or the left or whatever. It doesn't. The right and left in this context doesn't mean what it usually means, but they're really prepared, right? And then the rest of us, I mean, I'm somewhere in the middle. The rest of us and the rest of the population are like, they don't care. They don't know. Yeah. They don't think about it.
It's like a pretty sane practice among regular people, right? Not too far extreme, is to have some kind of emergency preparedness stuff, Frida. Some amount of it.
Is it?
And it's talked about.
Yeah, everybody should.
Yeah, like everyone knows that they should.
Everybody should have 3 months worth of money and for rent and whatever in the bank. Do most people actually do it? Do people? In fact, let's do a poll here with people that are watching this. Which do we have any people watching? I don't even know. I can't see my stats. But out of you guys watching, do you actually have a emergency preparedness kit at home in your car?
Before the COVID-19 hit.
Yeah. Before the last month, did you have one where you have at least, I don't know, what is usually recommended to have?
Well, it's recommended to have 10 days, like 2 weeks supply of water or something like that. Have some emergency blankets for heating, first aid kits, some kind of multi-tool or something, maybe like the light flare or something to have light or fire making stuff. Usually you buy that stuff in kits, but I think this situation, whether it's as bad as some people say or it's not as bad as people say, at the very least, it exposed the fact that a lot of us weren't as prepared with the emergency preparedness as we should have been. Because me personally at home, we have our go bags for an emergency. that has emergency water, emergency supplies, and things like that. And when we have some water at home, but now that this situation hit, it really made me reevaluate. Really, is that enough? Like, if this would have been like an earthquake or some kind of a tornado, which we don't really have here, but in other places they do, I probably would have been underprepared. And so at least this was like a wake-up call to say, do we have at least a realistically reasonable preparedness, emergency preparedness kit at home for in case of a real situation that's more urgent. This is kind of prolonging, and it gives us
yeah. This is unprecedented. Like, I mean, no one could have been prepared for this. Like, no one's like, oh, you're gonna be, you might have to go inside for 2 months or something, or which is a weird thing. You're like, what? Like, what is gonna prevent you from going outside? Oh, an invisible boogeyman, right? A thing that is killing.
It's funny, someone described it to me in a really interesting way. They said it's like an invisible sniper.
Yeah, because it's not gonna take all of us, but it's just gonna take a few of us here. Mostly our parents, our older, our sickly people.
Which some people find solace in kind of saying, oh, it's only old people that are dying, until it's the old people in your life that are the ones dying. Then it kind of changes the equation a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want my old people to die or my sickly friends. Like, just because they're sickly don't mean I don't care less about them.
Yeah.
And by the way, and it's not just the only people that are dying. Also, young people are dying, right? It's hitting kind of everyone. Obviously, it's heavier, or there's more numbers when you get into the older people and the sickly people, but. Everybody's dying from this thing. At least that's what the reports were hearing. I don't know if they're to be believed. Anyways, that's a whole other thing. But let's hear what people are saying here. Yes, we have been prepared since January for this. People need to stop listening to the mainstream media, and they would have known about this in December. So that's weird.
Yeah, it actually started, from my understanding, I believe it started at the beginning of December. Is when it actually started to in China.
Because it's got the 19, this coronavirus 2019. Right?
Yeah, so it started in December of 2019. And again, I'm not an expert on this. I'm getting the same information as probably most of you are. But I am choosy with my information too. I don't go with. I don't necessarily trust all the authoritative sources, because all the experts don't really seem to be as knowledgeable as they claim to be, as we've seen in many cases. Yeah. And the authoritative sources in popular media can be sensationalist at times. So
they just want the clicks.
Yeah,
you gotta realize that they're no different. Like, the media companies are no different than me. We need your clicks. We need you to click on our content and our videos and our story. Yeah. But the problem is that I'm just some dude with my own opinion that is completely biased or whatever, where the news people, they should have a responsibility to be, not just get, not to play tricks to try to get your clicks. They should have some, integrity when it comes to the kind of content they're going to put out there. I don't have that, right? I'm just a regular dude. But somehow we're at the same level. Now we're fighting for your clicks, which shouldn't be the case, but it is. It's unfortunate. So yeah, you have to be careful what you listen to.
Yeah, so it started in December of 2019, and it's been little by little growing, and then now it's exponentially starting to move. But but it's at least it could be over soon. It could be prolonged. But me and my family, we're just trying to be ready. We're just trying to be ready to be, because we're in California, so we're at kind of a stay-at-home thing.
Yeah.
And for the most part, I'm kind of trying to keep away. Right now, me and Jay, we're 6 feet apart from each other.
Yeah. Yes, we're socially distancing each other. We then shook hands. I'm having limited, but for me it's kind of weird because that's my kind of mode of operation. I'm not really socially crazy. I don't socialize regularly with people. So I kind of stay at home. So for me, it's just like, it's like
so
everyday
funny
life.
because like we're so similar in certain ways,
Yeah.
and but our personalities are almost opposites. Because I'm like the other way. Like I'm extroverted, so I'm like totally super social, but we have a lot of the same struggles that we grew up with, and we think a lot about the same things, and we like and the same way of doing things in a way. But it's interesting because it's like but we're able to like hold really interesting conversations together, which is cool.
Yeah. Well, I hope they're interesting, and if not, I'm sorry, guys, but I mean, it's just a conversation we're having. Wait, did you see that? By the way, I probably will get better at this, but probably this conversation is gonna be where we're gonna jump all over the place, right? Because I'm just like, I just had a thought right now. Did you see that footage going around where all those tanks are being transported?
No, tell me about
There's this one footage that it's train tracks, and there's just hundreds and hundreds of tanks. And you're like, and so here's the thing, heightened awareness right now, right? We're all kind of freaking out. This is America, right? We're the land of the free, supposedly, right? But the governor has given instructions to stay at home. Now they're not enforcing it. He even said it's going to be kind of self-enforced.
Yeah.
It's kind of impossible to enforce it, but not really.
I mean,
it's
not bring in like the National Guard or something like that, because I think that's what they're doing in a few other countries, right? I think like in England, in some places they did that. Some other place they brought in the military to kind of make sure people don't leave their homes and things. And I think they're using drones now to like here. Yeah, I heard something a report on that just a few days ago that they're either starting to or going to start using drones to kind of see if people are staying at home. I mean, they're not going to chase you home with the drone.
Wait, and by the way, if they're talking about drones, they're not talking about the little drones. They're probably talking about the military drones, the ones that kill people in Iraq and then all over the Middle East.
I think the little ones, but it could be though. I didn't read the report very thoroughly because I wasn't that interested in it.
Wow.
But I assumed it was the small drones.
Why though?
But
I mean, it would make sense because you don't need to have weapons on them. But I don't think the government has, a stockpile of drones to use. I mean, maybe they do. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that we don't know, right? But so, I mean, the thing is, we have that. We're supposed to be socially responsible and stay at home, but nobody's enforcing that, right? So then we're all afraid. Like I'm afraid. Like I mean, like I'm concerned with public health, like everyone else, right? It's like people are dumb. They're not gonna stop going outside. They're gonna spread the virus. It's probably too late, anyways. The virus is all over the place. But also, I'm concerned that because those dumb people now maybe martial law might become a real thing, right? And so when you see just wagons and wagons full of, I mean, hundreds of tanks going down the road, and then this is on the railroad, right? You're like, what are we doing here? Like, are they coming? Are they going? Are they moving them from one
the redcoats,
spot to another one? Like, I'm like, what's going? I think they're moving them. I think that's the story is they're going from one place to another one. They're storing them in another place. I'm hoping that's what it is.
I'm sure
Although that could be just a cover story. It's not like the cops can't lie. It's not like the government can't lie, right? It's like they do it all the time.
The government doesn't lie. No, it's not. I've never heard of the government lying to anybody before.
Come on.
Ever.
So, if anyone knows what the story is on that, I didn't really like. Why drones? No cameras, sound. The drones had cameras and sound. I mean, they can shoot someone from from across the world, right? I mean, they launch them, I think, 20, I don't know, maybe 100 miles away or something.
Yeah,
they have
a huge range.
Right, range, and they have these, gimbal stabilized cameras that they can zoom in. They can shoot lasers down on the ground, and they're they're supposed to be super accurate, but somehow they're like only 10% accurate.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding is that I think 80% of casualties are like civilian casualties. It's like, so that doesn't kind of qualify as accurate in my estimation.
No.
Again, I'm not an expert on statistics, but that seems like it's not
Yeah.
very accurate in my opinion.
I think it's one of those statistics that we don't care about because it's not our people that are dying, right? You're like, who cares? It's Iraqis, you know? They're enemies. Anyway, who cares? But I think, I don't know. Those are some of the numbers that we hear. I don't know how true they are.
Yeah.
You probably can. But I hope that's not what they're talking about, those kind of
I
drones.
hope not either.
And I hope that they're just transferring those tanks because they need to make space in a naval area to set up tents for medical equipment. Some good, you know what I mean? Like, let's hope that it's something good.
Yeah.
It just doesn't seem right when you see it in the news. And I saw it on an Instagram post by someone that I know.
Was it in the daytime?
It's in the daytime.
It's like
yeah.
at least do it at night. Like at least, you know, it's almost
Or
like
put up a sign that says like we're making. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like
they,
I don't know. It's just we all think the worst all the time, right? We're just like, oh my God, they're bringing in the tanks. Why do they need tanks?
I think everyone's so used to being lied to all the time that everyone's just everyone's in the mode where they know they have to question everything at this point.
Yeah.
You know, and not just because of this. It's just the accumulated history of interactions that they've had with both the media and information from whatever sources. There's so much misinformation that it's like, well, it's the safest option is just question everything when you get it, and then until it's verified. You know.
Yeah, that's true. So what else is it's going on here? I was starting to tell you that I noticed that my priorities have changed a little bit. Like every time, like I'm one of these like wannabe vegetarian. So I feel bad eating animals, right? Because of whole animal rights and stuff, right? I think we don't treat our animals right. We don't raise them correctly and stuff. So I'm like, yeah, I don't want to support that industry that is making a living or whatever after that. But it's hard. I literally grew up my entire life eating meat. And so even though I feel bad and I always think about it, I make it a point to think about it like, oh, I'm eating a cow right now. Like this cow probably suffered. Okay, so it really has make an impact in my consumption. I've almost cut probably 90% of my meat products. I eat less, I eat more vegetables and stuff, and it's good. You know, it's good for my health. I think it's great. But I think now, at this point now, the priorities are different now. I was like, we just need some good food now because we're eating, you know, at home and it's different. You know what I mean? Like it's different kind of food. Now we're like eating some canned stuff, which is not the greatest and stuff. Yeah.
That means you have to change your playlist now to whenever you're listening to the Smiths, you have to skip Meat is Murder. you know, I want to hear that song right now. I want to eat some meat right now.
So, yeah, my thing has been different now. Like yesterday, we ate. We haven't eaten out food much. I think it's like twice in the last 2 weeks or something. The rest is like homemade.
It's almost
meals.
strange, isn't it?
It is very strange.
It's I was talking to my wife about that, and like it's great to have like nice home cooked meals. You know, like we were even cooking together,
Yeah.
and it's which we've done before, but it's you know, it feels more because it's more often now. But I think now I'm at the point where I'm starting to like miss.
Crave.
Yeah, like right now I'm like craving donuts. You know, and which is not good. You know.
So I was craving all kinds of stuff, right? But we had the Hat yesterday. We went to the Hat. We were like, that place is open. Let's go. And we always like trying to. What's the word when you're trying to like make it right in your head? You're trying to justify. Hey, you know, we have to support the business.
Support local businesses. That's a good one. I gotta use that one.
I mean, it's true, right? It's true. You got to do it. It's a good thing to do it. But mostly we were like, we just want to get some meat, you know what I mean?
And before they close, because right now they're closing all these businesses, so it's like get it before they close down for the next 2 months or whatever, because depending on how long it is. So.
Yeah,
But I like support the local businesses better. I'm gonna put that in my. I'm gonna use that.
We got to do our part and support our local businesses because, I mean, I'm a local business, so if you support me, I'll support you, you know? In reality, we were just craving meat. We were like, eat the meat, you know what I mean? But it is definitely different priorities. I'm always, the fight with me is always like, oh, I need to try to eat the healthiest thing, but it can have meat, right? It can be, I mean, every once in a while is fine, but it needs to be high quality food, and it has to be tasty, you know. So it's like the checklist. I'm like, okay, and, you know, and I don't do it every day, right? It's like a battle. It's like
it's first world checklist, right? You know, and I think that now that things are kind of changing, the checklist is going out the window, and it's like, what can I eat? You know, the grass on the ground or whatever. But that's really what's happening. It kind of goes back to the what we first started talking about was like the perception. All our perceptions of value are changing at this point, and they're changing really fast. And so it's like now we're having trouble kind of navigating through that. You know, like you're saying that. You're questioning, you know, whether you can remain vegan or vegetarian, and it's like, but it's also the same with like people what they're buying, the whole toilet paper thing. It's just values are shifting, and where is it going to end up? It's kind of, it's unknown.
We don't know
at this point. Yeah,
this thing could still get much worse than this. We're still somewhat normal, like I said. We still have power. We still have food.
yeah.
The supply chains are still there, right? So there's you can go to the store. No one's gonna. Well, I mean, I think in some
Just you know,
in some cities
starting to break out. You know, I was at Target the other day, and you know, just getting some basic things that we needed that we forgot to get. And then two guys right away, you know,
really?
yeah, oh, you're in my 6 feet, bro. What's going on? And they started yelling at each other, and yeah, so it begins.
It begins. Yeah. But what's going to happen when the power goes out?
Yeah.
It's going to be crazy. Or what's going to happen when they tell us to go to that we can go out? So I saw that here in California, in San Jose, they were putting like road checks, and they were like actually asking people like, where are you going? Like you're just driving around. It's only essential things, you know, like, so if they start doing that, if they start sending us home, I feel like we're not prepared for that. Like, we didn't stock up, like, you know, for months or weeks. We just have, like, I don't know, maybe a week worth of food at home. You know what I mean? So that means we still have to go outside and go to the store and stuff. So, you know, I feel like if they're gonna send us home and not let us go out, they should have said that 2 months ago or a month ago, so that we have time to prepare. You know, but they don't want to say that because then we all freak out.
Yeah, that's the other thing too, is sometimes it's hard to understand when we're looking at the situation just from our own perspective, you know, like our own little micro world. Mm-hmm. It's like, you know, oh, we wish we could have that information. But then it is true when you step back and you have to look at the big picture. Yeah. It's like if they announced that early on, it could have caused the chaos. I mean, it's starting to have a chaos now, but it would have had it sooner. Yeah. But we prepared, you know, and I think we probably have like, well, actually, I probably shouldn't say how much supplies we got in case you guys come to get me. But but we didn't hoard anything. We just, like for example, we usually go to like, you know, like a Sam's Club or whatever to get like big stuff because it's cheaper when we get it that way, for the most part.
You're one of those.
Yeah, we had just bought our regular thing before the virus broke out. So it's like we already had like a 40 pack of toilet paper because that's what we get, and we don't buy for 6 months or whatever, or who knows how long. So, yeah, I think we just need to.
You're hoarding it. No.
No.
The other thing is that it's going to be really hard to enforce the stay at home, go homes, you know, because all of the Americans are armed. We all have guns.
I think they're still open, right?
I think so, and I think the sales are up. And right? Anything happens and sales are up.
Until they're forcibly closed, then they're gonna keep selling it.
Oh, so they start closing them, the sales are gonna go even higher.
They go underground.
So it's gonna be really hard to enforce anything mandatory, you know, in a free country. It's almost like, well, death, life, and liberty. I mean, they kind of go hand in hand, supposedly, right? And so. Can you imagine, trying to enforce everybody to stay home? It's gonna get ugly.
Yeah.
And then especially go home and you don't have food. Oh, who cares? We don't care. You should have been prepared already.
Yeah.
And I think most people aren't, right? So it could get it can get really ugly. I don't think you can do like what China did, where they would keep people inside. Well, someone said that they saw footage of them welding doors shut or something. You know, they're like, you're not coming out, or weld them. I mean, China's a different place, right? I mean, like when the government says something, like you do it or you die or you disappear, right? So in that aspect, they are going to be more capable of of making sure that people go home and maybe have a better response for spreading
I
a
think
virus like
the
this.
control of the population is a little bit more. It's more visible. I think here it's maybe not the same, but I think it's just a little bit more nuanced.
Yeah. Well, it's nuanced right up until you're like, you got to go home, and we're like, no, we're hungry, we don't have no food, and I have a gun, so step out of my way, cop or soldier or whatever, The
good thing is I have a lot of delivery right now. That's something that it's funny because I was talking to my wife, and I was talking with a few business people about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years, talking about one of the things, for example, that a lot of the small businesses were going to have to eventually start to adopt in order to compete with like Amazon and all this online stuff is delivery.
Yeah.
Like they were going to have to deliver because that was going to be a necessity at one point. And like now that's like literally that's the thing that is changing people's perceptions of whether they're going to continue to do business with the place or not. Are they going to deliver it to me because I can't go to see them, or I don't want to touch their stuff, because other people have been touching it on the shelves or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And so it's like now people are forcefully having to deliver or to, basically close up for good. There's other ways that they can still incorporate things that are valuable to people. Because like I said, the value perceptions have shifted.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that, like you were talking about, like supporting local businesses and things. That's one of the things that I'm looking to help people do is to think about new ways to provide value for people, so that the businesses. I think it's like 80% of the businesses in the U.S. are like small businesses. I think 50% of them are closed or something like that, or more than that. I read the statistic not too long ago, but it's like that's a humongous amount of them. And if they all remain closed, then those are huge problems because people are living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
So if we can think about things differently and kind of start to think more about what people are valuing differently and how that's shifted, we can find solutions to the situations. They might not be the same solutions, but that's okay, right? We just pivot to a new solution and then, we move forward from there.
Yeah. So let's talk about the stimulus package thing. What are you gonna do with your $1,200?
Did you already give an amount? Because I had heard like 1,000, but it was
$1,200.
still up in the air.
I don't know. I've seen a couple things on it, and I saw a couple people talking about it on YouTube, and they were like, I think it's gonna pass. I think no one's gonna go down as the evil person that is going to like block it or something. You know what I mean? Like, they're definitely gonna need a need, right, for stimulus, because obviously everybody's gonna be suffering. And I know there's some aid coming, like we just talked about. I just saw the story about mortgages being frozen or whatever, and
Moratorium on
mortgage and not evictions. What was that? Foreclosures.
Foreclosures, yeah.
Right, and my wife was asking us, and we're like, well, that doesn't apply to us because we're renters, So, I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, who knows what the owner of our place is? Like, that guy could own the place outright. Like, it doesn't matter,
Yeah.
It's just I think there will come some aid for renters, because if anything, the renters are probably who need aid more so than property owners, right? I mean, yeah, probably. I mean, the reason you're renting, it's probably because you make less money.
Yeah.
Normally, that's, or generally, that's the reason. So I'm sure there's going to be some aid for that. Like probably they're going to not let you evict you probably for months or something. Yeah. 90 days. Yeah, that's what they're saying. I think. So that's coming, but I mean, $1,200. If it's $1,200, that's nothing. What are you gonna do with that?
Like, you go buy toilet paper. That's what you're gonna do with it. And I don't recommend that, by the way. But I mean, the first answer would be like, "Oh, I'm gonna go to Disneyland," but oh no, it's closed. So, and I hate Disneyland, but that's a whole different topic. Yeah, it's gonna help, obviously, because it's something. But how much is it gonna help? That's a different thing.
I think it's just good enough to like have food, which I guess. I mean, that's what it should be for, I guess, right? Because
like you said at the beginning, water, maybe canned goods and things, just to, because I mean, I think there's some who, I think on the far edges would say that this is like the end of the world type of thing.
Yeah.
A lot of us don't think that's the case. We think that it's gonna eventually start to kind of die out, and we're gonna go back to normal, but like a new normal. Where we're gonna have to be thinking about being prepared for these kinds of situations more.
Yeah.
So it's more, at least the way that me and my family are handling it, we're just trying to use the resources that we have to kind of get through this so that we can be ready for what's coming next.
Yeah.
Not treating this like the end of the, mankind as we know it necessarily.
Yeah.
Even though obviously anything's possible, but
Could be, yeah.
we don't necessarily share that same sentiment.
So it's a weird thing because definitely it is. It's never happened before. It's kind of unprecedented. I mean,
Yeah.
It has happened before, but not in our lifetime, right?
Well, if you think about it, it's been the biggest events like this have been probably the Great Depression and the Spanish flu.
The Spanish flu.
And if you think about it, that was...
Wait, why the Great Depression though? The Great Depression, people died of hunger maybe, or they died of?
More of it's been compared to that just because like the economic impact, the potential for like people dying of hunger and then the ramifications afterwards of how it changed things or whatever.
Oh, I see. Wait, so do you think this is gonna go down in history as the plague that killed a bunch of people, or this is gonna be as the thing that caused a ton of like economic despair, not much more than like death and.
Yeah, I think it's going to be more that. I think it's too early to tell. I think it's going to depend on whether the predictions of certain like infectious disease experts are accurate, right? Because some of them are. I won't go into the numbers because this is not to like scaremonger or scare people, but some of the predictions of how many potentially would die are fairly high.
Yeah.
And if
wait, but what do you mean high? Heart disease kills millions.
Yeah.
Millions.
Well, high for a coronavirus, similar to the flu, which kills like only tens of thousands of people a year, and then compared to like 10 to 20 times whatever. So it's only relative when you compare it to something similar to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
But why do we care so much about who dies from flu, but not how many people die of heart disease?
Oh, that's a great question. I think it's all perception, because if you point the finger too much at certain things, then you start to kind of ask questions that people don't want you to ask, and then you start to find out things that people don't want you to find out, and then people make less money because of it. So. But that's a whole different thing. It's just from an economic perspective, that's something that some people would like to avoid. But going down in history as whether it's going to go down in history because of the deaths or because of the economic impact, I think it's still too early to tell. Because from the perspective of like mortality rate,
it's not even that high.
Yeah, it's not that high. It's still, people are super concerned, and I think they should be. But it's not that high compared to like the regular flu, let's say, and it potentially can. But if it gets super high in mortality rate, then it'll go down in history as, something like the Spanish flu.
Yeah.
But if it's more kind of becomes overhyped and people freak out, it's going to be more of the economic impact. You know, I think it's kind of too early to tell which one is going to be
Worse.
Yeah, like we don't know yet. We're still kind of trying to see.
Yeah. So we definitely don't have piles and piles and piles of bodies, right? I mean, there have been some deaths, and there's, I don't know, in the thousands, right? But I mean, thousands of people die every day. It's just a normal. Death is a normal part of life, right? And like I said, some death is really just goes unnoticed by us, like car accident deaths. What's the number that I saw the other day that was crazy high?
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that because I don't know what you're going to mention, but I'm not going to go into any specifics. But also, too, recently I saw a number of like deaths by something that I hadn't really thought about that seemed fairly trivial. And it was an enormous amount of deaths. And I was shocked at how many people died from like, slipping on a banana peel or some weird, so it was like this ridiculous thing. I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many people that died from that. So it's all kind of relative, It's
Well,
like
the one that I was thinking about that I was shocked was abortions. And it's crazy because people, don't think as those as deaths because they're, whatever, the lifelong argument, if it's a human life or not, before it's, whatever X amount, or when this become, right? But I'm like, to me, if you were to consider at the point of inception, right, like that's a life, and then it was aborted, whether natural or whatever, right? I'm like, well, that's a death. But when you look at the numbers, you're like, oh, this is millions and millions and millions every year. And I guess there's one part of the population that does care, right? Usually the religious right, usually, but which is weird that the rest of the population doesn't care. They're like, no, freedom comes first, and then before this type of murder.
Yeah, and
we don't care about this other type of murder, but that one we're not even gonna call it murder. It's just death, because it's complicated.
Yeah, and that's always the kind of workaround. It's complicated or it's nuanced and that kind of thing. It's sometimes it is, and it's not that black and white. But just recently too, I was looking at how many cases of deaths caused by like medical professionals.
Oh.
Right? Like doctors.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it was a humongous
and
amount.
It's kind of high.
Oh, it was well over like 60%. It was like almost like 80%. It was ridiculous.
Really low, right? We're not like we don't rank high as a civilized society or as a first world country either.
Yeah, and that's a shock, but you never hear about it. And again, so it kind of, obviously we're not getting into any kind of conspiracy theories or anything like that. But it does, keeping certain perceptions down does keep the system stable, and for some that's what they want. They want just kind of everything to be stable, everyone do your own thing and kind of don't make too much noise because then everything stays stable.
Yeah.
But sometimes that keeps us from understanding things more clearly and more completely. So.
What happened here?
All right,
We got hacked.
Something happened here.
So our little computer here that it's made that we were using as a monitor kind of died here. Restart. Yes. Whatever. So anyways, yeah, that's kind of interesting. The other thing that I am thinking about is the fact that since it's unprecedented, right? Since we haven't had anything like this in our lifetime. I mean, I'm not super young, but I'm not super old. But even our parents, like the Spanish flu thing was before them.
Well, that was the whole point about talking about the comparison with the Spanish flu and the Great Depression, is that was 3 generations ago. Because there's
3 generations.
Yeah, I mean, unless like, well, I have kids, so that's 4 generations ago. So it's like, but if we consider our generation, right, we're in our late 30s, early 40s, right?
Yeah.
So if we consider this one generation, our parents, the previous one, that was the grandparents.
Yeah.
So in 3 generations, this is like the biggest like scare, It's so it's people are really feeling the impact. I think a lot of people have we're not used to battle conditions in a way.
Yeah.
You know, unless someone's kind of been in those situations. Some of us have, and so some of us are a little bit more used to that type of thing. And maybe those who have been in like extreme poverty, like at the point of death, or things like that, may at least be a little bit more kind of accustomed to dealing with this kind of situation. But those who have kind of been in a safe spot their whole life, maybe somewhat affluent, this is coming as a complete shock, you know, and so it's.
You mean all of us? I mean, most of us.
Well, some of us. I know you've dealt with your own level of dealing with certain difficulties, and I know I have, and it's almost like we're more used to struggling, basically.
Yeah.
Because we've struggled.
Well, like to give you an idea, I like to use this example, right? I like to feel better than the rest because I grew up in a place that didn't have power or running water.
Yeah.
So I experienced my first 10 years of life was without power, without lights, without running water. So we had an outhouse in the back, and and I think that is, I mean there's people living like that now, right? But I think the vast majority of Americans, for example, they don't have that, right? I mean, there was people that had running water like at the turn of the century in like places like in like in cities like New York and and Paris and stuff. Yeah, so I know that those it doesn't seem like it doesn't matter what year it is. There's the whole range, right? But I think most people today don't know what it is to live without power or running water.
Yeah.
And I did, I mean, 30 years ago.
But it formed you. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Is it formed you into who you are. So even though it was 30 years ago, and even though it wasn't like the majority of your life, it was during a formative part of your life, and it gave you a different perspective as to the value of things.
Yeah.
And it was similar with myself, because I had the chance to live in Tijuana for a time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because I bumped into someone not too long ago from Tijuana, and I kind of, we talked about where they're from and whatever, and then I said, oh yeah, I got a chance to live out there for a while, and same situation. It was in a pretty bad part of it, and they asked me which part I lived in when I was living in TJ, and when I told them where, they're like, oh man, you live there? So someone from Tijuana telling me that.
Yes.
So because it was basically like the shantiest part, where you had the outhouses, you had the shanty towns made of just trash. With people were barefoot with dirt floors and things.
Yeah.
So I've experienced that as well.
Yeah.
So, and even though I didn't live the majority of my life that way, it has an impact on you enough where it forms, part of your perception, and you're able to say, you know what, I'm glad for what I have now.
Yeah, you appreciate it.
But in a way, it's almost like you're ready to kind of, you can support living in that way.
Well, I think it's even like a reality. I think most people don't even think about that. Like, they don't think about the person. Like, here's the thing that I do. Every day I get up, I take a shower. And most people don't think about this, but I'm like, look, I'm so incredibly like lucky that I get to shower, every day. I get up and it's hot water. And I can stay there for as long as I can. It's not a good idea to stay there for more than 10 minutes if you want to be socially conscious, right? Because we're in California, we don't have, abundance of water in this state. And most people don't know that, but they should know. But I'm like, most people don't even think about that. And I'm like, how crazy. There's another day I get to shower in here and wake up with water's super precious thing that a lot of people in the world don't have access to, and we bathe in it. What I mean?
The thing is that it's partially by being surrounded by a certain level of affluence, especially if we're in Southern California, right? So we basically take it for granted because, like you said, we bathe in this liquid that sometimes other people they struggle for 12 hours a day trying to find just to survive. But it all just goes back to the fact that we need to count our blessings, basically, and we need to
Yeah.
be appreciative for what we have, because not.
But you have to know that you have those blessings. Like, it's hard to appreciate them if you're like, oh, what do you mean there's people? What do you mean there's people that don't have water or running power or?
The funny thing about what's happening now is, now that people are forced inside, and even though everyone's on like their Zoom calls or on Hangouts and having their virtual meetings or whatever, they are having more time with their family, because you're cooped up with your family now. Cooped up.
Horrible.
But they're also having, it seems like they're having more time to reflect.
Yeah.
And it's like almost like they're looking back now and saying, especially to those who are like, I don't want to go to the office today. Well, now it's like, man, they're starting to really miss the office, but maybe not miss the office per se. They're missing, or maybe they're finally gaining perspective as to appreciating the things that they've taken for granted.
Yeah.
So.
Well, yeah, like you want to feel like you're achieving something, or you're doing something, right? That you're accomplishing things, and when you're at home, right, it's a different mentality. You're in a different mode or whatever, and it's okay for a week, but after 2-3 weeks, I start going, like, I'm going crazy at home, right? Like, there's too many people. I'm like, I usually want to sit here and think about doing my video, and what am I gonna make a video about? What do I want to spew out into the world? What kind of idea or whatever. I mean, that's my thing. My thing is to share ideas. Yeah. That, like, when you strip it down to the core, that's what I do, and I can't do that when there's just so many activity going around. So I'm like, I gotta get out of here.
Yeah, and that's the important part is, self-reflection and being able to have time to just kind of sit and think. And I think that's one of the valuable things that's an opportunity that we have now with this situation, is to kind of step away from the hectic life that we've all had and self-reflect, be appreciative, and gain some perspective. Step back, look at the bigger picture, and kind of see, look, we have a family. Like they've always been there. Let's appreciate them, and let's kind of make them feel loved, and let's kind of understand who we are and what we want to achieve, and who we want to help. Let's reconnect with old friends, that we haven't seen. I had an experience not too long ago where there's an old buddy of mine that it's a longer story that I'll tell some other time, but it's I helped him to kind of meet his wife for the first time, and so we had that connection, and for some reason, he was too busy, I was too busy, we couldn't get together, and so we would chat, on LinkedIn all the time, and well, not all the time, I would say, maybe once a year, and kind of say, hey, how you doing? We should catch up, and it was always, we should catch up.
Yeah.
Until one day, the guy was like in his, I think, mid-40s, he died.
What?
Yeah, he just had this rare disease, and he died, and the saddest part was, we had just nailed down the day.
Oh,
He had set the time, and I had set the time to finally go down and have a lunch together. And it was within 2 weeks of the day that he died.
Whoa.
And that just happened just a few years ago. And it really got me thinking again about, have I lost this connection with people?
Yeah.
What am I doing with, my old friends? It really should make us all think about that, because I think, without having, turning this into like this super deep motivational conversation about life and things, but everyone gets caught up in doing business and the numbers and performance, but sometimes they forget what it's all for.
Yeah.
Right? They forget that that's not necessarily, at least for some of us,
yeah.
that's not the end goal. For some people it is. For
Yeah.
some people that's what they want to do. They want to work, they want to perform, and that gives them purpose and joy.
Yeah.
But for a lot of us, that's just a means to an end, right? Like, yeah, we get some enjoyment from being able to perform well, and some of us are highly competitive, and and we get enjoyment by being the best at something. But some of us don't find maximum enjoyment in that. That's just a means to an end to be able to be with our families, be able to nurture friendships, and being able to basically achieve something larger than ourselves, you know? And so I think this is a good time for self-reflection, for us to reevaluate what our priorities are and what we value, gain a little perspective.
Yeah. Well, there's no better time than right now. Do you think there's another idea that I'm saying? You're saying about everybody's using Zoom. Everybody's using these apps that are to connect with people, right?
Quotes, right?
Yeah, to be virtually connect, right? And it's weird for me. This is normal. I've been messing around with this stuff to try to connect with people, right? Virtually. I mean, I do it every day, and it's funny now. I see people that haven't been interested in that before, like Crystal, my wife, for example, right? Like they were messing around with the Zoom stuff, and I'm like, you guys are doing the thing that I do all the time. I'm like, hey. You know, it's like...
It's the weirdest thing, isn't it? Because it's like, they didn't see the value before, for whatever reason, or they didn't see a reason why to jump into it, or they didn't see a reason why to spend more time with it.
They didn't need it, yeah.
They didn't need it.
Yeah.
And so now that it's needed, now the value skyrockets.
Yeah. I think... So do you think that... I mean, obviously... some businesses and some industries are going to suffer from this, and some industries are going to benefit from this, right? I'm like, I think all of these apps that are to connect people virtually, I think they're all going to be, I think this is going to change us. I think, you know, people are working from home. I just saw the news anchors that are at home, you know, doing the thing. And then all of a sudden they're going to be like, once this is over, they're going to be like, why do I need to go back to the office? Like, why do I need to go sit in the traffic for half hour just to go to an office where I can do it at home here, you know?
I mean, there is a number of people who cannot stand working at home. And for them, they're going to have to go back to the office, right?
Yeah.
After the whole COVID-19 thing ends. And that's okay for them, right? They're going to be able to go back to their office and do their thing. But I mean, if you think about it, there's 10% of people who always wanted to work from home. They just couldn't, and they couldn't find a way to ask their employees to do it. I mean, their employers to do that, or justify, you know, any kind of work performance to do that. And now finally they're like, yes. There's another whatever, and I'm just, obviously these numbers are completely made up. They're not authoritative, right? I'm just kind of making them up. But there's another percentage of people that have had a chance to work maybe a few times at home, that now they're like, oh, I love doing this. If I just work at home more, I get to, you know, interact with my family more. It even makes them perform better. I mean, it's now a large part of the workforce. I mean, this is impacted, you know, I think more than 50%. I think I was looking at a statistic. I think 50% of the states are like under stay-at-home orders or whatever. So that means that like a huge amount. I mean, it's got to be 40% of a lot of these small businesses who have the retail places are sending people home to be able to work from home. Obviously, again, none of these numbers are authoritative, but it's going to be a new thing. I mean, it's always been there, but now the need for it is going to be a lot higher. Like, people are going to not say, oh, I'll just go back to the office and not work from home. They're going to demand now to be able to have more time to work at home.
Well, definitely there is going to be a subset of the population that is going to do that, right? Like I feel like I'm ahead of the curve because I'm like, oh, you guys are doing the thing that I do, right? Like I stopped commuting I don't know what 15 years ago. I don't know, less than that, about 10 years ago, and I'm like, I look at anyone today that commutes more than 20 minutes, and I'm like, you're crazy. Like, what, you go to work farther than 20 minutes? You know, like, add it up. Like, how many years you got left? Add it up. How much time you're spending in the car going to work? But this is not actually working.
Yeah.
You're just going to work. I'm like, that's just wasted time. Like, that's too much for me, right? Like, and I guess I'm lucky that I realized that, well, I don't know, early on. Maybe not. See, the thing is, I feel like I wasted almost like a whole decade of my life working in a crappy job just because my situation, I couldn't change it, right? And I was commuting a lot. I think I did all my commuting in that decade, where maybe some of the rest of the people, or the normal population, spreads it throughout their life or something, right? Although I know some people that are stupid because they're commuting 2 hours every day, and they've been doing it for the past 10 years, and you're like, what are you doing? Like you literally are living portion of your life in the freeway.
Yeah.
And so I think now that we're forced to, whoever is capable or able to work at home, they're doing it, right?
Yeah.
And so I think maybe there's going to be more people working remotely from,
And I
from
think
now
there's
on.
a lot of jobs that maybe employers didn't think they could do. Yeah, it was possible. Then now it's going to be like, oh, it's totally possible. It's just that you just wanted to have control over people and kind of be looking over their shoulder and feel like the boss and have them in your office where you can, babysit them, So I think now it's starting to become more clear that, we need to approach how we work, how we collaborate in workspaces. We really need to reevaluate that. I think a lot of the businesses, this is one of the reasons why a lot of the, for example, brick and mortar and retail has been in such trouble with sort of like Amazon and things like that. It's because there's this reluctance to basically update that operating system. So it's we want to operate like if it was 1950 where you had to go to the corner drugstore and buy your stuff. Like we forcefully want people to do that, but it's not necessary anymore.
No.
I mean, people want to do that. You can go take a walk and you get your exercise and do that. That's fine. But that should be the incentive.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be that you have to come here because.
Yeah, for me, it's like really frustrating because I'm like, I need this thing right now. But I know if I go to the store, I'll just walk around the store in circles and I won't find the thing. I'll find everything else, but I won't find the thing that I need. Or I'll have to settle with something that maybe is similar, that might be able to work, and then I don't want to go and return it again.
Or worse, you'll buy stuff and then find out when you get home that you forgot the thing you were meant to go get.
Yes.
Right?
So that model, at least for me, right, it doesn't work. I look at my wife and I'm like, you're just going across town all day, like hours for hours. If you had it at the end of the week, just returning stuff and getting stuff. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I appreciate my time. I value my time. I am older than her, so I'm like, hey, the end is coming. I got less time than you, so I don't want to waste it right around town buying stupid things.
But it's funny because that kind of hits the heart of the issue is that the reason why people still want to do that is because there's some kind of experience still there, right?
Yeah.
In other words, it's not that they don't know that they're wasting time, commuting, and that they could just, do Prime and then just free delivery for the whole year.
Yeah.
Like they know that, like on a conscious level, they're aware, it makes sense, but they're getting a different benefit by traveling.
Like getting out of the house.
Yeah, so it becomes an experience, and that's I think where a lot of the businesses that are struggling, that's where they're having the problem, is that they're having a problem with connecting the intangible part of that experience with their brand, and that's essentially why I like to do consulting with the brands, is because it's those intangibles that you find out what they are, then you tie them together, and you're like, okay, well, I provide that experience in this new way, and so we have to operate as organizations, as businesses, we have to operate that operating system. We can't operate our businesses like it's 1950. I mean, that's what Amazon did. Amazon said, we're not going to operate. That's not the way the world works anymore. The world works in this other way now. People don't want to, waste all this time, and they want to be able to have all these options, and they want you to take it to their house. That's what we're going to do. We're going to start with, I think, books, right? They started with books, and then Jeff Bezos, he knew it so well that he basically reinvested all the profits. So they didn't make profits for 10 years.
Yeah.
And so because he was building his brand, building recognition, building awareness, and he understood that that's the way that he was going to basically build this force that was going to be a dominant player, and
It was crazy. Like it was, if you had told me that this guy would be able to deliver stuff for free or virtually for free, you'd be like, what do you mean? Like how's he gonna pay for it? Like you gotta pay the guy, the driver that drives around looking.
yeah.
And then it just doesn't. You gotta scale up to such a big thing that then becomes right
That's the thing,
economies of scale. But you don't. Even now that you know about economies of scale and you
Yeah.
see it, when you think about it, you're like, yeah, that is.
Well, that's
it's hard to
exactly,
beat.
that's exactly the issue, is vision.
Yeah.
See, that's the problem. So it's kind of funny that you mentioned it, because it's like, it's almost like on a conscious level we know it,
Yeah.
or excuse me, backwards. It's on a subconscious level we know it, but on a conscious level it hasn't clicked yet, right? But what you said is exactly it. He had the vision that spread out further beyond what other people can see, where he knew that once you gained a certain economy of scale, you'd be able to. It would make sense.
It would make sense.
You know?
Financial sense.
In financial sense, yeah.
Correct.
And then even psychological sense for people, to motivate them to then pay him whatever,
Yeah.
what is it, $100, $120 a year per person to be able to pay up front for all the shipping or whatever,
Yeah.
and to join this like club or whatever.
Which, by the way, I don't know if it adds up. I think it would be interesting to see like statistics, like out of all the people who pay the Prime, how many packages do you order throughout the year? Like, I don't know where I rank. I want to say that I rank higher than everyone, but I might be crazy. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm in the middle. Or maybe I'm on the low side. Maybe more
Well, here's
people are
one thing you
ordering
should do.
everything.
Here's one thing you could do is just check your orders and just swipe through your orders.
Oh, I mean,
And you'll probably be shocked at how many orders.
no, I know. I order every week. It's like at least 10 packages
Yeah,
come
and,
to.
and you think about it. When did you first get Prime, for example? Like, what, a few years ago?
Yeah. I want to say 6 years.
6 years ago.
7 years, maybe?
So think
wait,
10.
wait. 7 years ago, I got my bus. I don't know.
Yeah, well, let's just say
But
7
let's
years,
say,
right?
yeah.
Let's say 7 years. So if you think back 10 years ago now, and 10 years ago, there was still e-commerce. Amazon was still there, and there were still other stores you could buy. But how many times did you buy? Like 3 times a year, if anything. Now it's like 3 times a week, and so
Yeah.
that's the thing is that's why, like, without getting too far into it, like when you're like trying to build a brand, Jeff Bezos knew right away you have to have vision is the first thing you have to have. If you don't
Yeah.
have vision,
Yeah.
then you're never going to be able to see what other people can't see, because most people were just used to kind of the normal everyday stuff, and so your vision is limited to whatever is normal,
Yeah.
and that's why you need people who can step out of that, basically. Go for it.
Brad joined in 1999. How long ago is that?
I think that's. I think Amazon started to offer. I think that's when they started to offer, right? I don't know if
99?
maybe Brad can comment, but
Well, how many years is that?
it's been 20 some years.
Yeah. By the way, how many of you guys have Amazon Prime that are listening, that are watching this? And how many packages do you guys estimate that you that you get per week? I guess, right? I mean,
Yeah,
per week it's
See, because I was questioning myself recently about that. Like, do I buy every week? And there's weeks where it's like multiple times a week, and I'm like,
Oh,
oh my
yeah.
gosh, I didn't realize. Like, sometimes it's like a few weeks that go by and I don't get anything, but sometimes it's like multiple things per week, and I'm like, it's just so different how in only a few years, like the way I approach purchasing anything has shifted quite a lot.
yeah.
And I think what's happening with like COVID-19 and all this type of stuff, it's doing something similar. It's shifting everything, and that's where businesses. And I know a lot of the viewers, they're like into technology and DIY and batteries and that type of stuff.
Yeah.
And like the perceptions are shifting, and it could be that even the perception for those things are shifting. Maybe people didn't see the need so much, like, oh, you guys are kind of just DIYers, and they fall in the prepper categories where you guys are kind of more fringe. Yeah, and it could be that that's the way people saw.
Yeah.
But now it's like people's values are changing, and so now people might be like, you know what? These are the
Everybody's gonna
need.
become a prepper or
Yeah.
more. Our
We need
prepper
this
community is about to grow. It's about to explode right now.
So it's like we should be thinking about. It's like there's volatility right now. There's lots of change, but we could either look at it as change is like bad and it's going to disrupt the way I do things and I'm going to avoid it, or we can say, look, change allows for more new ideas and new opportunities to arise that I
Yeah.
can take advantage of, right?
Yeah.
Obviously without taking advantage of people, right? And doing
Yeah,
sleazy
you know.
things, which is what some people do because they're opportunistic or whatever.
Yeah, are you talking about those guys that bought all the toilet paper and the Purell and then they were
Reselling it for
they posted it and they were posting it. The dummies, they bought Sears. They're dumb, right? So they went and hit all the brick and mortar stores and they bought it at retail. So obviously, in order to make money, you'd have to bump up the price.
Yeah.
So then they were kind of price gouging. So they got caught, and they actually, I think they got the stuff confiscated, like the city or the
really?
county or some kind of authority.
Oh, wow. And they probably could do that because all the hospitals that need that stuff and
Yeah.
things like that. So
So
that's
first,
why-
I think the story that I saw is first the guy got his Amazon account like suspended or something because Amazon was like, "What? You're gouging? Like, no, get out of here. This is a national emergency.
Yeah.
You know, you shouldn't be trying to make money, especially doing this kind of sleazy way, right?"
Yeah.
So then they froze their account. So now the story that came out, the idiots, they got interviewed by someone like Vice or I don't know, I don't remember who it was. And they went and they interviewed him, and then he kind of talks us. He's in trouble, like financially. He's like, "What am I supposed to do with all? Look at my garage," and it's like a garage full of stuff. So then now they're on the radar. Now they're national news. Look at these idiots, right? That are trying to make money off of this disaster. So then I guess then the right authority saw it, and I think they went and confiscated. So not only are they just stuck with a bunch of stuff that they can't sell, now they don't even have it.
yeah.
So-
and any kind of they might have had a legitimate business before, right, where they were selling stuff.
Yeah.
Well, now that brand has been tarnished, and now it's
Yeah.
like now they got to start over if they're able to even go back into that business again.
Yeah.
So let's just be good
Yeah,
people.
I
Let's
mean-
just be good people,
It's hard. Like I have thought about how to be careful and not, because again, I'm in the right place. Like I'm almost on the prepper side. I'm like, hey, be prepared for this thing when the power goes out. This is important. You don't know it yet, but you're gonna know it as soon as you see it, right? You should have a battery backup. You should have a little system to give yourself lights, to give yourself like power for your computer, for your refrigerator. This is good stuff.
Yeah.
I should be like, this might be good for me and my business, right? But at the same time, I'm like, I don't want to take advantage of people. I don't want to sensationalize my videos and try to take advantage of that, right? I just happen to be there, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be okay. Like, I know how to hustle.
Yeah.
I'm no stranger to hard times, and I'm in the right place. Like, if anything, I think the prepper community is gonna grow. Like, all of a
Yeah.
sudden, people are gonna be like, hey, this modern society that we build, it's like Joe Rogan likes to say, it's a thin veneer.
Yeah.
A tiny little thing, like a little bit of fear.
Is gonna put
Throws
you
it
over
all.
the edge, and that's why I think some of us, right, yourself included, we're trying to be just good neighbors and good people to say like, hey, look,
Yeah.
we're here to help, right? Some people who have businesses, I mean, they want to keep their businesses open, and they should, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they're providing valuable things to people, but they shouldn't do it at the expense of other people's.
Yeah, you should take
you know,
advantage of people.
And that's, I think, I remember I had a conversation with someone recently. I might have mentioned this to you before, where it was a strange situation because it was actually a wrong number that called.
Okay.
And I picked up because I was expecting a call from someone that I didn't recognize the number, so I go, oh, maybe it's them. I picked up, it was a wrong number. We would talk for like an hour anyways.
What?
So long story short,
Okay.
I'm an extrovert, so I do
Wow.
that sometimes. So we talked for like an hour. So we started talking about like business, and we started talking about like, and he started saying that his business kind of it's hard to make money, right? And I said no, I disagree with you. I go, it's not hard to make money. It's really really easy to make money. I go, you go sell crack on the corner, you make money really fast. I go, that's not the problem. Is not the making money part. That's the easy part. I go, but if you don't want to be a bad person, if you don't want to be a sleazy, well then that's a different conversation. If you want to be an honest person, and if you want to make money without ripping people off, I go, that's the difficult part. That's harder, right? Just the making money is easy, but we're trying to do it in a way that's honest, that we're helping people. But you're competing with people who are sleazy, for example, and who are kind of trying to play the system, and who are, trying to promise false things or whatever. And then that's what makes it difficult for honest people to compete with people like that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, morals. Well, like with me, I don't know. I explained the other day in one of my live chats that, I'm super picky on the ways that I want to make money. I'm like, first world problems, I guess, right? Because I get, if you lived in a third world country, you're just like, I just need to make some money so we can eat.
Yeah.
But obviously we're much better than that here. Now we're like, oh, well, I don't want to make money in a sleazy way. I have morals, I have standards, or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, we have the luxury of doing that. And you should look at it as a luxury. You should appreciate it. You should be appreciative. But like with me, I'm like, I need to be doing stuff that fixes a problem. Like, I don't just want to make money. Like, money is not the
Well, it goes back to
object.
the same question. It's not just about making money. It's
Yeah.
about doing something meaningful. It's about doing something useful. It's like those jerks who don't have any like real copyright for stuff. And they just go around filing lawsuits against people who say, "Oh, I own this thing. It's like they don't even make the thing.
Yeah.
They just somehow claim the copyright, and then they go around suing people who can't use it."
Yeah.
It's like those people are not creating any real value.
Yeah.
Right? And it's not in
Well,
some philosophical ways. It's like, when you're really solving a problem and you're providing value, like that's useful. That's meaningful.
Well, the shorts, the stock, that short stocks or whatever. Those, what value they offer? They're just forcing a stock to go up and down, and they're trying to make money on that. Like, that absolutely no value whatsoever. That's gambling, but not even just gambling. At least the gamblers don't have an actual input or effect on the thing that they're gambling on. These guys are gambling, and then they're going and affecting the thing that they're gambling on. Like, those are just scum. I mean, those people are just leeches, society's leeches. They offer nothing. They're just taking money from a system, right? So I'm like, that's one good example. And I think, well, most people don't know about that, I guess. I think probably within my audience, most people know it because of the Tesla stock that is the most shorted stock in the world, I guess. And they're trying to create bad news.
Yeah.
For Tesla, so it goes down so they can buy, and then when it goes back up, because it's a good product, it's a good thing, then they sell, or opposite, whatever, you know what I mean? Like,
and I think that's where that's where you start to see, what people really value. Kind of going back to the whole value conversation, is if they're just trying to chasing the dollar, then you're gonna do stuff like that. You're gonna create bad news just so it'll fluctuate, and then you can make a few bucks off that.
Yeah.
It's like, I think the way I look at it, at least just personally, is if you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of human needs, where it's like it's like a pyramid, and it has the human needs divided into sections, and it basically says that if at the bottom of the pyramid is your base human needs, like you have to go to the bathroom, you have to like drink water, like really basic needs to function as a human being where you're alive.
Mm-hmm.
Then you start going up in the pyramid of needs, and like, okay, you have some kind of self-esteem, right? You have someone who loves you, that and then you go to the next level where you're now looking for higher meaning and self-actualization, that kind of thing, right?
Mm.
Well, and it seems like to me, people who are constantly chasing the dollar are stuck on the lower levels of the pyramid, where they're constantly seeking to satisfy base needs, and they're either not able to, or they don't see the value in being able to, do things that are larger than themselves, self-actualize, achieve mastery over something, help other people who are less fortunate than they are, make a difference, things like that, and that's the way I see it. They're stuck on the lower levels, and so they're just chasing the dollars, kind of leeching off those who do kind of have a larger perspective, and want to have a bigger impact on the world. And so, it's usually better to kind of stay away from
those lower
from
tiers.
leeches.
Yeah.
I mean, we all go through them,
Yeah.
But it's like whether we remain in them, that's like right now, one of the big things that's in the world is like hedonism, right? The desire to constantly be satisfying your physical needs, in a pleasure seeking way, right? And it's, obviously there's different kinds of pleasures that we all enjoy, right? And some of them are totally fine. I was saying earlier that I'm craving donuts, right? There's nothing wrong with having a donut here and there, right? But there's this need to constantly be feeding, the physical pleasures. And that's basically like, those are all the lower levels of the human needs. Those are people who are having difficulty being able to achieve the higher levels of self-actualization, of being able to have a bigger impact on the world, because they're really just interested in like, they might do some of those things. It's a selfish act.
Yeah.
They might do those things by accident or as a byproduct, but they're not really aiming for those type of things.
Oh, I see.
So it's really kind of an interesting thing psychologically when you look at people's behavior. But that's part of what I try to look at when I'm kind of evaluating the situation, like right now with COVID-19, or evaluating like brands, or doing like sharing content. It all has to do with like this interesting psychological interplay of factors and ideas, and I'm like super fascinated with that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Crystal's asking me if we already ate.
Oh, I did, but tell her it depends on what she made. I'm kidding. Unas enchiladas.
That's funny. Okay, so we're here. Okay. Wow. So, how long have we been? Should we ask our?
Yeah.
Should we include our? Should I get pizza? Woo! Should we get pizza, guys?
Sounds great.
Yeah, pizza sounds great. Let me just tell Crystal. The pizza sounds great. Anyways, I just wanted to test out what my communication skills, and obviously, like, if you guys could hear Brian, he knows how to talk, and we often do this. I mean, every time we get together, we have long conversations, right?
Yeah.
I have conversations with Misa too, and they're like maybe a different scope, different
like
thing.
engrossing. They're like,
Yeah.
you get to like, go off on a.
Yeah, and I have zero idea if they're interesting to anyone other than ourselves, but I'm always trying to push the envelope, right? Like, for those of you guys that don't know, like, I started selling iPods. I used to be a carpenter. That was a job that was just not gonna go anywhere. It was just a thing. It was labor, would make money. I used to make okay money, but I was never gonna achieve anything other
You
than
wanted to do. Yeah.
rent a house and have a beat up car and spend ungodly amounts of time on the road going to work every day, right? I was a carpenter. I used to install, so I never worked in the same place, more than a few days at a time, and they were always far. It's always like 100 miles that way, 100 miles that way, 150 miles that way. A crazy amount. I was always late because I had to be there by 6 a.m. So that means I'd have to leave my house it was terrible. It was like nightmare. I mean, it was okay. I appreciate what I learned through that, right? But, so then what I ended up doing was like the iPods were out and I was like, oh, I could sell iPods. This is the greatest invention in the world. It's a little thing and you can put all these music.
And it wasn't the time.
And in my life at that time, music played such a big thing. I also, when I was in high school, I used to play drums and guitar, and so music was a much bigger had a much bigger importance, a place in my life, right? And so I'm like, iPods, I'm gonna sell. So I started a website called iPods for Less, and I started buying them, but I didn't know anything about business, right? So I was buying them refurbished from Apple, because Apple's like, they don't have a chain, they sell them on their own. They're kind of a closed system, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, I couldn't really figure out how to get them cheap and sell them at a profit. So I just got myself into debt for a couple of years, and then I had to go back to work again. And so then after that, what happened was that I started Jack 35, right? We wanted to shoot video and stuff, and we're like, well, we don't know, we can't afford cameras, so let's make our own like equipment. And so I started doing that. So it turns out there's a bunch of people like us that had no money, and so then I'm like, well, let's just build this for them, And so then that became a business. But again, it wasn't my thing. I didn't want to go into business to producing parts for, that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to shoot video. I wanted to make my own little movies and stuff. But then once that failed, because whatever, external sources and mismanagement, I was terrible at managing, employees and stuff. Then I started doing this YouTube thing, and then all of a sudden I'm like, well, what the hell do I talk about? I want to make videos, but what do I'm like, the only thing that I know is my story. So let's start talking about that, and then those part of the story is like the whole, I want to do something cool with the car, I want to make it electric because that's the new thing, and that's the responsible thing, and it's great for the environment. It fits all these little boxes in my thing, right? So I'm like, let's do it. And it's technical, and then now this thing with the batteries, now it goes into the batteries. But I'm always trying different things. And I'm always, people are always like, no, you're crazy. You're going to try a new thing. No, but every few years I have to do it. I can't stay still and keep doing the same thing over and over. And I feel like I'm there now, and maybe this podcasting thing is going to be a thing. And I've been wanting to do it for a long time. I enjoy quite a bit of podcasts. I listen to a few of them. And I'm like, I need to do that. I don't know. Is it a thing that I can do and maybe achieve some kind of success? Who knows? I will never find out if I don't do it. So here I am, right? And you're the first episode. I know that you've done a few of them, right? Or you used to record some with Misa or something?
Yeah, I mean, we were, I was testing with Misa like a bunch of different formats, because I was trying to get a podcast going. I have one now. It's called the Archimedes Effect.
Okay.
And we were doing video though. I think right now it's just audio, but I'm going to start doing video.
Oh, okay. Just audio, huh?
Yeah, but I'm going to start doing video. That's the whole idea we were shooting with Misa, is to try to figure out like what's a good format. Like is it going to be like interview style? Is it going to be like going out to cover, things happening? Is it going to be like we're just playing with ideas? Go for it. You were going to say something.
Some of the ones that I listen to, they're almost like a news story. It's crazy because they're edited very well, but it's just audio. It's like what I do with the videos, but they do it with audio, right? And then they present them, and it's like a podcast, and you're like, whoa, that's a lot of work. Like it's very creative. They have good writing. The information is well laid out and thought out and stuff. I'm like, this is cool, but I already do that, and that's my videos. I don't want to just do that in audio form.
Yeah.
I want my podcasting thing to be different. It's like, and there is such a thing of the podcast that just you show up and you just have a conversation.
Yeah.
And I tend to enjoy those equally as good.
Yeah, I think the conversations are better in those.
They're better than the well-prepared ones.
Yeah, because there's that's actually the reason why I started with the podcast I do right now is audio only, was because I felt really weird in front of a camera. It's the weirdest thing because I'm an extrovert, so I'm used to talking to people.
Yeah.
I talk to strangers all the time.
Uh-huh.
I've done some public speaking as well, so I'm used to being in front of crowds of people.
Yeah.
But being in front of the camera feels different. There's something psychologically, it just feels different,
Yeah.
Maybe it's like what was it in Zoolander where he says it steals a part of your soul.
Yeah.
No, but it's it just felt different and they felt really uncomfortable when the camera was on. So we were trying the different formats to try to number one, see if there's a certain format that I felt more comfortable in.
Yeah.
We shot with like GoPros. We did multi-angle, multicam shots.
Yeah.
We did ones where it's just me talking like about just ideas that I want to talk about. We did me interviewing
Going
someone
back and forth,
else. Yeah, we
yeah.
did back and forth things. What made the most sense was what you were saying, just kind of spontaneous conversations, right? Where you don't really have a specific agenda. You just kind of let the conversation flow, and it just kind of takes its own direction. And you know, there could be some structure where you're like, we're going to talk about business, and then we don't end up talking about religion at the end, you know, because we're just talking about like, it could deviate, but then it goes back to business or whatever. Or if we talk about like filmmaking, you know, like we could talk about all kinds of other things, but as long as it kind of goes back to filmmaking, you know.
Oh,
So
okay.
so there is a certain amount of structure that it can have, but it's still fairly loose, you know.
Yeah.
And that seems to be the format that was working well. That's this format. But I still felt uncomfortable on camera, so I wanted to do an audio podcast to just kind of get more used to, because I mean, when you're kind of doing it on your own, you're just there kind of talking to yourself,
Yeah.
you know, and that's kind of awkward, you know.
Yeah, I've been doing that quite a bit because I do these live Q&A. So I could be there for 3 hours and I feel like I'm just talking to myself. Like there's no one else in the room. My dad walks in there like he's, you know, like this zipper open without shoe. I don't think he gets that on the other side of this camera are up to 300 people sometimes, right? So, because when you stand back and you look at it, I'm like, he just sees me talking to myself. He must think I'm like crazy or something.
He just leaves you alone. He just like.
But I take it seriously because I'm like, no, there's 300 people in the other side of this lens. Like, I'm doing the thing and I'm answering the questions, you know, and I'm like doing the thing. But I totally get what you're saying, that it feels weird to be inside in a room by yourself, just doing a thing, trying to have a conversation, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, and that's why it makes the most sense. What actually felt the best was, you know, talking with someone else, kind of bouncing ideas off. You know, I think this, what do you think? No, I don't think that's the case. Well, why not? Oh, it's because of this. Oh, you know what? I hadn't seen it that way. It's, you know, and you kind of bouncing ideas. It's like there's this energy that's moving around that's like, yeah, you know, you get to learn something from the other person, and you get to show them something that they've never seen. They show you something that you've never seen. It's a different dynamic, you know? So I have enjoyed the audio format.
Oh, I see.
That's interesting. But I think ultimately it's just a stepping stone for me to do the video, which is actually when I'm supposed to record one, like either later today or
Oh, really?
tomorrow. So
oh,
we'll see.
damn.
We'll see.
You might do
We'll see.
multiple,
Well, it depends on the pizza, right? 'Cause
multiple podcasts in a day?
Actually, I started another one, but I'm think I might put that one on hold. I think I'm going to focus. The Archimedes effect, basically, without getting too self-promotional, the whole idea wasn't to plug.
To promote? Yeah, promote, man.
But it
Come
was
on.
like, but the whole idea is it's inspired by one of the greatest minds in history, which is Archimedes of Syracuse.
Oh, okay.
And he is actually not very well known amongst general public. So he's not like a popular genius like Einstein, or like you hear other people.
Elon.
Like you hear like you know, Elon, or like modern ones, but ancient ones like Pythagoras, or people that you may not know exactly what they were talking about, but you hear about them, right?
Yeah.
Oh, Pythagoras, like I remember hearing about that in math or whatever.
Uh-huh.
Well, Archimedes is one of those who he's well known in like science and mathematics circles and things, because he's basically called the father of mathematics,
Oh,
right?
okay.
And he's considered to be one of the greatest geniuses the world has ever known. But what was interesting to me was that he had a way of thinking that kind of allowed him to be able to create these innovations. And that way of thinking was that he approached things kind of multidisciplinary. You know, he didn't stick to one domain. He was like a mathematician, he was an engineer, he was a physicist, he was an astronomer, you know, so he did all these different things.
Jack of all trades.
Yeah, which is really interesting, because it's funny that that's actually the jack of all trades thing. That's actually one of the reasons why I wanted to do this podcast, was because there's actually a little bit of a misconception as to what that means when people say jack of all trades. Because when you think about it, when you're talking about a craft, right? Like carpentry, for example, right? If you talk to someone who is a carpenter and a plumber and a roofer and a mechanic and whatever, you can probably be sure that he can probably do the job, but he's probably not a master at all of them, right? So it is actually very true that a jack of all trades is a master of none, right?
Yeah.
But it's interesting because, as true as that is, I started to realize that that really only applies to the domain of craft, not so much in the domain of ideas, right? It can apply in the domain of ideas, but ideas are more fluid. And so both myself and others who are multidisciplinary, we found that we could actually dominate several domains in the role of in the sense of ideas that interplay with each other really well, and that's actually where insights and derive from and innovations derive from. And so the way Archimedes would do it is he played with all these multiple domains. That's actually why there hasn't been a lot of like super impressive breakthroughs in like science like there was in a few years back, right? There's been leaps, but there hasn't been like giant leaps like there used to be humongous leaps in understanding. And part of the reason I think is because the theorist and the engineer were the same person at one time.
Oh.
You see, now everyone's so specialized that they don't share information anymore sometimes. So everyone creates silos where they're separated. So it's basically intellectual distancing as opposed to social distancing. So they're so super specialized in their field that they're not talking to the people in the other fields. And so there's actually several places right now in science where the answer to a question in this field has already been discovered in this other field, and it's been around for 10 years. And this field is still looking for it. And there's several instances that I plan on talking about some of those in the podcast. And some of us know about those things because some of those are starting to be used for certain technologies that are coming out to do certain things. One of them is clean energy, which we haven't talked about yet. We'll talk about that. And the reason why that's possible is because they use a mentality like Archimedes. And the effects that has is what I call the Archimedes effect. So that's kind of ties it all together. So it's a multidisciplinary approach to problem solving that basically deals with multiple domains of ideas in order to find the interconnected structures, to basically filter out things that are viable and interplay within each different realm, and then you can extract insights from there to create innovations. Something like that.
There you go.
Yes.
Wow. Well, I'm impressed. I'm impressed with that. Yeah, my podcast is not that elaborate. I just want to sit around and just talk nonsense. No. I mean,
I think it just sounds fancier than it is, but it's it's those type of insights that. Well, you'd be surprised though. See, some of those insights come from conversations like this. Though. That's the interesting part. It's because they're not super structured that they're allowed to flow.
Yeah.
You know, because part of the idea of like creativity, for example, is that you have room to explore. Right, because there's a lot of these terms that get thrown out that creativity and innovation, but people don't really stop to think about what does that actually mean, right?
Yeah.
They're not just buzzwords; like they actually mean something, and how can you actually understand what they mean to then utilize them, right?
Yeah.
And creativity is one of them that gets thrown around a lot by a lot of businesses and organizations, and they don't really know what they're talking about. Right? It's just a fancy word that they're in love with the romantic idea of what it could be in their mind, but it doesn't really have any connection to how they're using it in their organization. And so you have organizations that want to be innovative and creative, but they don't give the people that work for them any room to explore. They don't give them budgets to do things. They have these tight restraints on how they want them to operate. They can't work from home. They have to work in this little cubicle. So it's like they're in love with the idea of creativity and innovation. They want the results, but they're not understanding that in order to get the results, you have to be able to create the environment, right? Nurture that environment in order to be, foster, a certain level of collaboration to get to those results.
Yeah.
And so there's this big disconnect between what they actually want to achieve and how to achieve it. And so this is and not just in my podcast, but these conversations that are free flowing are the ways that you can start to nurture those types of collaborations that are open, they're free. They can flow, and the fact that they go on a tangent allows you to discover this thing over here that you didn't know was going to affect this thing over here.
Yeah.
And now you brought this insight from this domain into this domain, and you're like, oh my gosh, that's the aha moment, which, by the way, was invented by Archimedes. He's the one who created the aha moment.
Oh.
So there's all these little things that these conversations in the podcast, that's why I think it's going to do well. Your podcast is going to do well because you're going to be looking for new things. You're going to be talking to different people.
Yeah.
It's going to be good. It's going to be good.
Yeah, like, I mean, I have a lot of ideas, right? Like, I just do batteries. I know my audience thinks that I just do that. But in fact, I don't do that much batteries. I'm not an expert in batteries. I do know quite a bit about the subject because I've done enough of it, right? But I can spot someone that doesn't know what they're talking about. Like, for example, I've mentioned this in the other day, YouTubers are talking about how Tesla's innovating and they're so far ahead of the thing, and the battery, they're putting so much battery capacity and the chemistry of and I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, they're the same cell that
Same thing, yeah.
Since 2012 is the same cell and thing. Now finally they've changed it, and it is slightly better, but it's not like a giant leap. It's like incremental.
That's the thing, and that's what I'm talking about when it comes to like people talking about innovation, and it's like there's certain amounts of optimization that once it hits a certain point, you can kind of start to call it an innovation because it like made such a big change. But a lot of times it's not an innovation. Like they call it innovation because that's what's going to impress their boss or that's what's going to get a headline. But in reality, it's not really anything innovative and new. It's just an incremental step that they really shouldn't be calling it innovation. It's just clickbait, Yeah. And so that's the type of thing that, for me, like these conversations allow a more open discussion about, the reality of those situations. Like it's okay if it's not an innovation. That's all right. Like you're not going to get fired. Or maybe they are going to get fired. That's why they had to like call it an innovation and make it seem more impressive than it is.
Yeah. So definitely a lot of ideas that I've had about all this stuff, and I need an outlet to talk about them, but I don't have it right now because again my videos have to be like pigeonholed into the restraints of batteries, and electric cars and all that stuff, So then I'm like, what do I do with the rest of the stuff?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think a lot of some of my audience will be Solar Roads battery addiction says, no Solar Roads. They're not gonna like it. But I always notice that if I am making my audience unhappy, then it's usually a good thing because that means I'm trying new things, and usually that means that I'm not stagnant. Right, and so I'm not like one of these people that just can do the same thing over and over and over and over again. It's kind of bad because that's how you make money, right? You like figure it out, you do it enough. I'm not like super smart, so it's like I'm not particularly good at any of the stuff that I do. So it takes me probably longer than average to get good at doing one thing. And like right now, where I'm like at the point where like, oh, I can make a lot of money and I'm doing these videos, right?
Yeah.
But it would mean that I have to keep doing them the same way. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. I want to do something else.
That's the thing that I've discovered recently is that it's okay to know that that's your place. That there is the place for people who can keep the thing running and can keep everything normal and have that operating. And that's what they're good at. They're good at keeping that structure and keeping everything in place and keeping all the cogs, turning. And they'll grease up all the cogs and the machine will keep running. That's what they're good at structure, at organization. That's fine. That's just not us, right?
Yeah.
We have a different gift. We have a different ability, which is to be doing new things, to innovate, to be looking out to what's going to happen, to go into the unknown, right? and there is a room for people like us.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of finding the way that because the two have to interplay. That's actually why we have both a right hemisphere and a left hemisphere in our brain, is because the left hemisphere of our brain is what keeps us structured all the time. It's our mentality for having structure, because if you put on your socks and then try to put on if you put on your shoes and then try to put on your socks, it doesn't work. Like, you have to have a structure for certain ways that you do things. But if you don't innovate, or if you don't try new things, then you'll never learn anything new.
Yeah.
And you can't progress.
And you can't evolve. Yeah.
Yeah, but the problem is, if you innovate too far or too fast, then it's hard to accept, because it's hard to implement into the existing structure. The structure is too rigid. There's no space for it.
Yeah.
And so what happens is, the way our mind works psychologically, is that in fact, it's thought that that's part of the reason why we dream, is because we're trying to filter out the information, obviously for memory and things like that. But it's actually helping us to filter the new into the rigid. It's slowly trickling it in. And so that's where people who are innovative, and people who are always seeking to break boundaries, like we are, we need to be able to work with those who are super organized and structured, who can run the organizations or do things like that.
I need one of those.
But to understand, like, each one understand what we're good at, so that we're not trying to do the other guy's job and then we mess up, or they're not trying to do our job and then kind of throw us off track.
Yeah.
Like, we need to know that they're both necessary parts. We just have to interplay in a way that makes sense.
Yeah. I need one of those guys that is opposite me, and then I haven't found them yet. So that I can work with them. Yeah, it's crazy, but I do need someone to help me. It's weird, like, it's like this channel, right? Like, it's just me. It's like literally just me, just every day, just grinding on it, just doing it, doing the thing, doing the videos. I mean, you were here at the very beginning, right? And sometimes I see these other channels, and they're more successful than me, and they're like, and I'm like, why can they do it? And then I look a little bit further in there, and they're like, it's a team of 10 people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they have they have assistants, and they have assistants to the assistants.
They have producers, they have writers, they have people scouting for talent and collaborations, and they have all kinds of stuff. They have employees that are just doing the whole thing.
Yeah.
So it's like, there is a point where you might want to get into that type of thing, but it's like, it requires an interplay of people with different skills.
Yeah, and it also it would take a toll on me. Like, I would have to make sure that I can do that. Like, I don't know if I'm capable of collaborating like that, because I've never done it before, right? So I'm afraid of new things too. I'm not just. And also the other thing is, like, sometimes I'm like, look at these people. They're working extra hard. They're working 10 times harder than me for 1/10 of the pie.
Yeah, and it's funny, because that's the funny thing about when I said, like, it's okay for those who are structured to be structured. Like, that's what they're good at. That's fine. They're not going to be that good at creative stuff necessarily. It's okay. Yeah. Like, and those who are, like, super creative may not be that good at structure. It's okay. It doesn't mean that they're not worth anything. It just means that you're different. Mm-hmm. But that's where that comes into play, because the person who's super creative may find it super easy to do this one thing over here, that the person who's super structured takes them 10 times longer to figure out even what's going on. Yeah. And this person's like, oh, you mean this? And it's ready to go, because I'm a creative. This is what I do. This is what I'm good at. Yeah. It's super easy for me. And it could be vice versa. The person who's super creative will find it super hard to do the structure, because that's just, their mind is more dominant by, let's say maybe the right side than the left side. Yeah. So it's interesting, because I like looking into these types of things to kind of understand where we need to play, because we need to play to our strengths. See, I have a little bit of both sides, actually. So I have the creative side, because I work with in the creative industry. and I'm trained in design, and I'm trained in like, doing like branding, and I'm trained in doing like creative direction and art direction, that type of thing. But I also am like a brand strategist, and I'm super interested in like finding efficiencies and finding what's effective. So there is some structure that I like to have. So it's like a little bit of both sides, left and right brain or whatever. We just have to find what we're good at. Which one, which side are we on? If we're at both, it's okay too. But I noticed that it's a little bit more rare to have both sides.
Yeah.
So, and it's okay. We just
and then sometimes instead of being good at both sides, you just suck at both.
Yeah, then that's when but then at least that's when we have to say, hey, someone help me out, help me figure this out. And that's okay, because we can help each other figure it out. That's what right now I'm trying to do with like everyone's getting unemployed right now, right? Mm-hmm. Like you mentioned earlier, I was working for a company for a year, and I stopped doing kind of my side work and stuff, and I my business that I do with branding and stuff.
Full time.
Oh yeah, it was full time. So
okay.
So I basically I didn't want to do other projects because I was, tired, and I have other things that I do on the side, and so I lost my train of thought.
Whoa. Yeah, the people are losing their jobs.
Oh yeah, and what I'm thinking about right now is how to help those who have found themselves unemployed, to see if potentially there's a few people in, like, for example, on LinkedIn, who I'm connected with, that we're having those conversations. How do we help those who have found themselves unemployed suddenly, right? What options do they have, right? Obviously one option is to get help. We have the stimulus thing. There's unemployment insurance, savings and things. Obviously there's those things, but what are other options, right? Maybe they can start a new business, right?
Yeah.
Right, because especially if it's online, it may not require that much investment, right?
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that I want to explore with people, is to kind of say, look, my strength is in brand building, Yeah. And so because I'm familiar with brand strategy and I know how to do some brand management, like I can look at this situation and say, okay, let's look at your skills, let's look at your abilities, let's look at what you've done before, find out where you fit, are you left brain, are you right brain, where do you fit within this equation, and then let's find out where there a need, right? Like we were talking about earlier, value, right? Values are shifting, right? Well, let's look at where values are shifting, what has shifted already, where's it going, and then see where that fits, right? And there can potentially be a fit there where you can say, you know what, you might want to think about doing this here in this way, Maybe you fit in, you used to do this, maybe now you can pivot that to this thing. And here's like a virtual way of doing the same thing, or doing something similar. Or maybe doing something that's different, but that you're still comfortable doing because you have, a computer and a camera. Maybe they have to be making content now, We don't know.
Yeah.
But at least I want to be able to have the conversation with people so that we can start to, basically help all the people. Because there's a ton of people who are unemployed now. Oh yeah, there's a ton. So, and the less that they spend is going to hit the economy even more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like,
effect,
so it helps all of us to continue to, do business as we help each other.
Yeah.
So we don't just want to lock ourselves in our rooms.
Yes, I believe that. Let's again, like 20 minutes ago, we were gonna talk. We were gonna see what our audience was saying.
Let's
There is an audience. It's small, but they're there. How many of you guys find yourselves unemployed? I want to know that. Like, out of the 57 here, 60 people watching today. Is there
I should have probably closed this door.
the door? Nah, it's fine. Yeah, it's fine. Creative types matched up with stable types. They can work if they can keep the marriage going.
That is a fantastic point, because that is exactly the problem. That's exactly the problem. And who said that?
That was Fox Pup.
Yeah, I mean that is the challenge. Is like they don't really mesh together, because if you have if you have all creative types, no one's going to be on time. Everyone's going to be all chasing butterflies, and you know, every time they hear squirrel, they're going to run off, and everything's going to fall apart. But the same is also true with people who are structured. People who are structured, they'll have, like, the ship will sail. Like, the machine will run for a while. The problem is, as soon as there's a change, they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Because the only thing that's programmed into the operating system is what I already know. And so when there's a change, all they do is more of what they already know.
Yeah.
And then the answer is no, that is not even logical, right? Because you're being hit with something new that requires a new solution, right? So we have to create something that maybe doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But they don't know how to do that. All they know how to do is more of what they know how to do. And so they hit it harder with that, and it just makes the situation worse, and it frustrates them and frustrates everybody. So there has to be, a little bit of the creative into the structure,
Yeah.
but it can't be over. It can't be completely taken over, because if you don't have any structured people, then you can't have a structure.
Yeah.
You know, it all just kind of becomes this loose. It diffuses into nothing, basically, because everyone goes in their own direction.
Yeah.
Something like that.
So reading here the comments, Ronald Ronson, unemployed. Lex Broken, he's one of the winners. He won a battery not too long ago. I recognize the name. Almost everyone is unemployed today. Really, right? Kind of, but everyone. But I think a lot of them are known that they're gonna have a job at the end of this, right? I mean, I don't know, like.
Well, here's the thing, though.
Because what does unemployment mean?
That's a great question. Like, if you think about this, I was just talking to my wife about this. Okay, so let's say they were just let go because of COVID-19,
Yeah.
right? And so they say, look, we're going to lose revenue, so we can no longer have you on board, but we're going to get you when you come back, okay? Because we're expecting this is going to last this many weeks. Yeah, as soon as it settles, we're going to come back. Okay, so the problem with that is the employee now, who is now unemployed, is not receiving any money.
Yeah.
Okay, he's living paycheck to paycheck for the most of us, right? So
Yeah.
because that's the case, within a month, if he's not, like, let's say, for example, if there's any challenge with his unemployment insurance or whatever, he's within 4 to 6 weeks, he's going to be feeling the pressure already,
Yeah.
assuming he has a little bit of savings.
Yeah.
So after that 4 to 6 weeks, he's got to find a way to make money.
Yeah.
So if he joins another company, starts his own business, starts doing side projects, maybe he has a side gig and he ramps it up to full time or whatever. Maybe he gets some friends together to start working together. Well, then he now is doing a new thing, and so now potentially the employer now
doesn't have an employee.
doesn't have an employee because he had to find his own way.
Yeah.
Now the other side is, what if the situation does calm down, and the company's like, well, we can no longer pay for your position.
Because their sales went down, because...
Exactly, because this could last, another month, it could last 6 months.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I would be careful with companies who kind of would say that. I'm sure they have good intentions, and I'm sure they're being genuine when they're saying that.
Yeah.
But I think realistically, it would be good to plan, because from a business perspective, it doesn't make a lot of sense to be able to be 6 months without your employees and without revenue,
Yeah.
and then expect them all to kind of come back.
Yeah, I know.
That's not very realistic. So
No.
I think both of those things together is going to, like, exacerbate the unemployment issue.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's weird. Yeah, but I mean, there's gonna be people that are gonna be looking for jobs. Whether it's not that same guy, there's gonna be now a giant pool of people that are looking for jobs. So they're like, who cares? If it's not you, it's someone else, right? It's the same amount of people that workforce is not increasing. Well, there might be decreasing if a lot of people die.
Unfortunately.
That is crazy. Let's hope that doesn't. That's not the thing. Here's the thing. Here's what I was thinking. If we are successful at preventing this thing from going crazy and killing millions of people, which I don't know. I don't know if we are or not. I can't it's hard to put your finger on the pulse and see where we're at.
Yeah, well, let's.
Is this
assume
working?
Assume that we.
Let's say that we are, right? This thing is going to go in history as the biggest hoax. Because without a mountains of dead bodies, then we overreacted.
Yes, and that's what some are saying, that the economic impact could potentially be greater than the impact on life. Right? It could be the other way around, but it seems like the economic impact is going to be huge. You know, and that's why some are comparing it to depression, because they're still saying, look, we have at least another month before it potentially peaks. Right? At least another month.
The hysteria,
No, the actual disease.
No, the actual disease.
Yeah, so they're saying another month before, who is they? Well, I'll let you guys do the research on that, right? So 1 month, potentially 2 months before the disease actually peaks, right? Up to 6 months before it's like completely gone, right?
Okay.
So like I said, we still don't know if it's really going to be lives that are, tons and tons of lives that are going to.
Where does the hysteria peak? At the same time as the disease peak? Do they go together?
I think-
Or are they?
I think they might go together, but because it seems to be the growth seems to be somewhat exponential. Like for example, in our area, like 2 weeks ago, there was like one person infected, and now there's like hundreds, which may not seem like a whole lot, but when you think about it, that's like a multiple of quite a bit. So it's an exponential growth.
Yeah.
And if it continues on that trend, it could just stop tomorrow. But if it continues on that trend, the exponential growth means that in a few weeks it's going to be like, like 1 million people in this area, stuff like that. So we hope that it's not going to get to that point. But so it just we have to kind of wait and see. And while we're waiting and seeing, we might want to, distance ourselves a little bit, which is kind of what the authorities are recommending, right?
Yeah.
It's how effective that is. I mean, it's all kind of rule of thumbs,
Yeah.
Like if 6 feet away is going to help you, but if like there's a fan behind you blowing thing, I mean, it's not really going to, So it's all kind of general rules that are, nothing's for sure, basically.
But if the breadwinner of the family has to go outside to work in the next 3 weeks, 4 weeks,
Yeah.
if he gets it out there, then the whole family. So then, like, the whole staying home was for nothing, essentially.
Yeah.
And if every home has one of those,
Yeah.
then you did. I mean, all you did was, well, we're trying to flatten the curve, I guess. That's what they're trying to do. We're not trying really to prevent people from getting it, I guess, right?
Yeah.
They're just trying to.
Prevent the spread as much.
We're trying to delay
Yeah.
because do they think that it's not this is not preventable? Like,
Well, yeah.
we're so interconnected. I think that we're all gonna get it.
Yeah, there's some
probably right.
experts that were saying that that potentially a lot of us could have already been infected. I think we talked about this yesterday, and it was so mild that we didn't even realize that we got it. And I think some estimates.
But do you think that's actually true? If it was coming from China and it would take a while. I mean, I know that the world is super connected and stuff.
Yeah.
And here's the thing that is apparent: the more affluent parts got it first, and that would make sense because people travel more internationally, right? Like for example, we live in county of San Bernardino. We're not as affluent as maybe Orange County and LA County, right? And so therefore, there's not as many people flying to and from China coming to this county. So that's why it took longer for cases to start popping up, right?
Yeah.
So could many of us already had had it if
Potentially. I mean, that's the thing, is it's not really certain. So potentially we could have already contracted it. It's just hard to tell. It's hard to tell because it's also like supposedly a novel strain, So it's like we don't know that if we would have contracted it, we have any antibodies that could protect us from it. So
that's the fear. Right?
Yeah. So maybe it's possible that if we contract it, it's going to be bad, or it could be that we already got it and it was so mild that we just had we had to spit every once in a while, and a few days later we had a sore throat, and that was it, and then we got over it. So it's kind of up in the air. We're not really sure.
we don't really, we're not sure. And we don't know what to believe because fake media,
Yeah.
fake news, fake news.
Plan for the worst, hope for the best, right?
Yeah. So anyways, let's see what they're saying here. I went to build a company. Not the time. Well, actually, it is a great time to start a company. It's never a bad time to start a company. Well, maybe there is time, but
No, and I just talked to someone about that yesterday, and that's a good question because some people would say, well, it's a bad time because, who's going to invest into a company? That's true to a sense.
well,
but-
not all companies have to be invested
Exactly.
into.
That's exactly the point.
I started with $300 in my pocket, and
Yeah,
then
and I started a company with like nothing. I just had to work a month for free till I can get it to fund itself, basically.
Yeah.
So, it normally when we think of starting a company, we think of the traditional way of starting a company, which is, putting in a large investment, maybe getting a big loan and things like that. And sometimes that even means getting a building and doing all kinds of other things, infrastructure and all kinds of things. That may not be the case anymore online, right? And so that's why my approach to, trying to help unemployed ones to try to maybe see if there's options to start a business would be online, remote, digital, right? Potentially that could be a very low investment thing, right? What the investment is, well, it depends on the business, right? Every business is completely different. We would know once we talked about the details of it, of what's possible. But it doesn't have to have a large investment necessarily.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
it's. I just don't know how many people know that. I guess I think there's a ton of people that don't know that you don't need capital to start a company. In fact, that is probably not the best way. I think there's certain types of businesses that definitely need to be that way. I remember I don't know if I've ever told you the story, but I went to New York once, and I just said, "Hey, I'm gonna be in New York if any of my fans wants to meet up or whatever, you know."
Yeah, I think I remember seeing
And the one guy showed up, and he told me, I didn't know who the guy was, but he's like, he goes, what do you want to do? And I'm like, oh well, I'm trying to do videos and my channel and the thing, and this, and I'm converting my car and the thing. I'm kind of ran him down through all these things and he's looking at me and he goes, you should start a car company, like Elon, And I'm like, the hell are you talking about? Like, that's not within my realm. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's I don't have the know-how. I don't have the means. I don't have no, like, that's not what I do. And I'm thinking, like, that's a dumb thing to say, you know what I mean? But then later on, I realized that the dude was a millionaire, right? And so in his reality, it is a possibility, and he doesn't have those doors that I had at that time,
Exactly.
that I still have, you know what I mean? Like, I'd like to operate within my reach, and I form, my idea of where my reach is at by many factors, right? He operates at a different level because he's got an account with like millions of dollars, right? So for him to tell me that, it's a reasonable thing.
Yeah.
But obviously for me, from my perspective, I'm like, are you crazy?
Well, that's the whole purpose of conversation.
yeah.
Is the whole purpose of, and this might be on a different topic, but the whole purpose of that conversation is to, there's someone who illustrated it this way. I think it might have been Jordan Peterson. They're saying, look, if we're all on a scale from 1 to 10, right? Or no, from 0 to 10, right? And that's in the possibilities that you have, right? Well, some of us, right, and that includes you and that includes me, some of us have been stuck at 0 and all our time and effort is spent trying to get from 0 to 1.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
we have to work extremely hard to get from 0 to 1 because the rest of the opportunity, we didn't have the connections, we didn't have the parents to show us how to do these things, we didn't have the education, we didn't have the money,
Yeah.
we weren't in the right area, all these different things, right? Life threw us a bad hand, right? So for some people, it's easy to say, oh, just invest $100,000 into the thing and get it off the ground. But that's because they had all these things in place,
Yeah.
right? So it's easy for them to move from 4 to 7, for example, right?
Yeah.
It's very easy. Well, but for some of us, we've had to struggle, literally like almost a life and death struggle, just to get from 0 to one, and that's actually the hardest place to get out of,
Yeah.
because if you have nothing to invest, well then you can't go anywhere.
You can't start anything.
Yeah, you can't start anything because you're literally just trying to survive, right? And so that's one of the things that sometimes people like that lack the perspective. To be perfectly frank, that's what it is. They lack the perspective to understand that not everyone is like them. Is that some of us don't have $1 million in the bank to be able to kind of say, oh, just open up a company and do that. Well, I can't. Oh, just get a loan. Well, I don't have any credit, because I can't
One of your
even.
friends to lend you the money.
Yeah. Oh, well, I don't have friends that have money like that. Oh, well, tell your parents. I grew up without my parents. I was orphaned. So some people don't realize that, and so that's why having conversations with people, you actually get to find out things.
Yeah.
Like, it's amazing what you can do when you have conversations with people.
Yeah.
And then you get to realize that those nuances, and then we don't say things that that I don't want to say that they're insensitive because that sounds strange, but we don't say things that don't make sense. Because
Yeah.
if he was talking to another millionaire, that would make perfect sense. Oh, start another company, but talking to someone like yourself or myself
Yeah.
that have worked extremely hard just to kind of get out of zero.
Yeah, no, but
The opposite is also true. Like, if you hang out with a bunch of millionaires and you're not a millionaire, it rubs off on you. Like,
Yes.
thinking without the walls, right? And you're like, this is a crazy idea in my world, from my perspective. But from his perspective, it's not crazy. I'm just going to do it. And it might be enough to make you, and you're probably going to fail, but, it can't be 100% failure.
Yeah.
No one is like 100% failure rate, right?
Like, for example,
Everybody-
that's the whole point with like innovation, right? Like iterating.
yeah.
Right? Like the whole point of innovation, or not the whole point of innovation, but a part of the process of innovation is iteration, right? Is you trying to figure out what's working by also seeing what's not working,
Yeah.
right? And that requires risk and a certain amount of investment, whether it's time or money,
Yeah.
right? And so when someone is, and this is to your point, when someone is fighting to survive, they're holding on to every little thing and they can't risk anything.
Yeah.
But then you can't innovate.
you can't.
You have to be able to have a little bit of risk and invest something somewhere to be
Yeah.
able to try. And it may be easier said than done, but it's a necessary requirement. But that's a lot of times it can be, unless someone is completely destitute, then it's just not possible for them to innovate at all, because they literally have nothing. They literally can't eat, and so they don't have anything to. So that's a different situation.
Yeah.
Some of us have been in that situation, by the way. I have myself. But at least once you're able to say, look, they say you have to spend money to make money. Like, from my understanding, that doesn't make any sense, because I'm holding on to every scrap. But then at the same time, in order to kind of break that barrier and move to the next level, that actually is what makes sense, is you have to invest in order to get a return.
Yeah.
And
money-
things like that.
Money can mean a lot of things, like time, for example. So
Yeah.
maybe you don't have $1, but
Yeah.
maybe you do have an hour. And
Exactly.
someone doesn't want to spend an hour peeling some potatoes or something, and they'll give you $1 for your time peeling the potatoes. That's how it starts, right?
It's exchanging value,
Yeah.
is what it is. So, and that's why I look at things more in terms of value than in terms of like dollars or other things. It's like, how much do we value this thing? And as soon as you find value, then you can either exchange it for money, or you could exchange it for other things, right?
Yeah.
Like, so I might look at this empty water bottle and it's valueless now because it's empty. But someone might have this really cool thing that they can do with this thing. Maybe they do a trick with the water bottle, and people pay to see him do that trick. So the value.
Well, you might want to boil water so that you can drink it. And if you don't have that bottle, then you can't do it. But if you have it, you can boil water with it, right? And then you're like, oh, I can drink it. So it becomes a very important thing. It's
Yeah.
got a lot of value.
Yeah.
It's just depending on what angle you look at.
Exactly, it's all contextual. And so, and the only way you can get context is like by having information, right? And the way you can get information is you can either like go out and live it and learn it that way, which is can be useful, but is not always the most beneficial things. Because sometimes along the way you die, and then you can no longer learn it. So sometimes that's a good way to learn things, but sometimes you can learn from experience, or you can learn from others who have done similar things, and then you can glean from them insights and things, and then you don't have to like die like the other guy did.
Yeah.
So I hope everyone knows that you can start businesses without money.
Yeah, we've done it.
Like we've done it. I've started with $300, right? $300 in my pocket. I built a little thing for a camera. People needed it. See, here's the thing though. I wouldn't have known that that was a possibility if I hadn't been trying things.
Yeah.
And I wasn't trying to start a company. I was trying to better my camera. I was trying to hack my camera into making it look better than it did from out of the box.
Yeah.
Right? And because I'm not unique, I'm not, I'm just like everyone else. There's a ton of other people that were trying to do the exact same thing. And if I figure something, and by the way, I didn't figure it out. I just hijacked someone else's accomplishment, and I'm like, oh, this dude figured out how to do it. You just make a box and you do a little piece of, glass, and then you grind it up with some super fine powder. It's aluminum oxide. And I'm like, I'm looking in the forums and I'm like, you just learn to do this thing, then you do it. And then people online were like, oh, can you make me one? I don't want to spend the time learning to do it.
Yeah.
So this is essentially what I did. I traded my time, right, for a few bucks for someone. Someone didn't want to take the trouble to go and learn to do the thing that they want to do. I had already done it.
Yeah.
And that was a repeatable thing, in the span of a few weeks and a few months, I repeated that same process, hundreds and hundreds of times, right? And in the span of, I don't know, a few years, it was like thousands, 10,000 times or something, and so very quickly it kind of grew. And so I didn't have to figure out how to set up a business. It just happened.
Yeah.
They just like, oh, I'm doing something that someone else wants. Bam, So I buy the parts for $30 and then I'd sell them for $300. So my margins were huge, at those early stages. But of course, eventually I had to get a place and people and employees, and it started cutting into my margins until a time came where like, oh, my margins are not big enough and I can't. This wasn't sustainable, right? And of course I didn't know that because I'd never gone through business. This was the first time, and I was too busy creating product to figure out how a business is set up and what I should be doing. So that was a good learning experience. But you could definitely, right now it's a good time to do a business because there are people trying to do something right now.
Yeah, and they have to something. That's the other thing is people have to figure out what to do.
Yeah.
And when times are uncertain, people who are more like structured, left brain, they're gonna just try to do the same thing more, which may not work, So sometimes what's needed is a creative option,
Yeah.
something new, something innovative to say, hey, look, let's get over the fear of the new, and let's explore this new territory, and maybe that's where the answer is, right?
Yeah.
And maybe that'll change things forever, right? We don't know.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to do something right now, here's what I see. That's why I'm not worried about it. I see a new reality for people that didn't think they needed to be prepared. All of a sudden they're like, oh, we need to be prepared.
Yeah.
And it doesn't just include like, coffee and toilet paper. It's like also batteries. Because if the power goes out, you're going to be much worse. I've been saying this for a long time. If the power goes out, you're going to be hurting. You're going to be unhappy.
Yeah.
And it's really easy to fix it if you just have a little battery.
And it's funny.
Little or big battery, it doesn't matter.
Even people who don't really think about batteries at all, right? You have to think about the fact that, okay, well, what if let's say the virus gets worse, and or at least it peaks, and then it's like it affects the people working on the power, right? So we're not talking about some massive catastrophe necessarily, but we're saying somehow the power workers in our area get it, and then our power goes out and no one can restore it.
Yeah.
Now I have to think about, like, do I have my lantern? Oh wait, I have a lantern, and it works right now, And every time I turn it on, every few months I turn it on to test it and it works. But that's because you turn it on for 2 seconds every 2 months.
Yeah.
When you actually need it for your day to day, it's gonna
Yeah.
last you 2 weeks,
And
and then
you-
you no more batteries.
And then you're gonna have some cheap batteries like these Amazon basic batteries that who knows what are in here. Like these might last you 2 hours
yeah,
or 20 minutes.
Who knows?
Most likely 20 minutes.
Hence the price, right?
Yeah.
And but it's like until we start to like think about specific situations, then you're like, oh my gosh, like what about my TV control?
Yeah.
That has batteries, and what if they go out and then I can't go to the store because now they shut down all the grocery stores, you know, because people are getting infected or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like little things. You're like, oh my gosh, batteries are so useful. So
Batteries are very useful.
No, I mean not batteries. Energy. We're so
Energy.
depending on electrical energy. We use it every single second of our lifestyle.
Yeah.
Most of us.
yeah,
We don't realize it, but we do. And if we don't have it, we're gonna be mighty unhappy. And I'm trying to prepare you guys by saying, buy a battery.
So by that-
build a battery.
we're introducing our new kit, $9.99. Call now. Buy one get one free.
So I'm not sweating it because this is a new reality that people are going to, more and more people are going to realize this. I think the prepping community is growing. This thing is gonna do more to grow the prepper community than
they're-
anything else in history.
Preppers are super happy right now. They're like, we told you, we're ready.
We told you.
You know?
Call us crazy again. That's what they're saying. Call us crazy, huh? We're the nuts. We're the nut ones. Like we were saying, we're gonna do that.
They're ready. Any other interesting?
Let's check out the comments here. Too late if you're not there. Louis Rosman has a good video on business. Just uploaded. Oh, there you go. I have to watch that. That guy makes a different kind of content. For me, he's kind of like always complaining and stuff, but he's good at what he does. It's really interesting.
I gotta check them out.
I hope we get the guys from EV West to hear their story. Oh yeah, so that is the aim here. That is that I start these podcasts. I can't convince anyone to come into my podcast until I have a podcast, right?
That's a good point.
And so I know I have access to all of these interesting people, but without having a podcast, I can't get them to come. So now that here it is, there's the first one.
Hey, if you build it,
If you build it, they will come. If I podcast, I will have podcast guests.
yeah.
And yeah, it would be really interesting to sit down and talk with Michael. He's he thinks different than me in many aspects
Why
and
don't
stuff.
you like do a poll and see like who would they want to have on the podcast?
Yeah, who
Suggestions.
who would you suggest for me to get here and as a guest too, so that we can talk about just whatever, just life
Some
and
people
how they start.
Like within your network, you'll be able to talk to yourself, but maybe there's people that they know
Yeah.
that you don't have access to. Then
That I don't know.
yeah,
Yeah,
they recommend
who
us.
within your circles exactly that would be really interesting for me to have, because again, my circles are small actually, because of my whole thing. I'm not the. But if you have one, you're gonna have to start suggesting for me to do. But yeah, I am definitely. That's the plan. I want to reach out to all those friends and all those people in my circles, and I want to talk to them. And that's the other thing is that there's a lot of stuff that I don't know about them because you never sit down and talk to them like this. But now, if you just sit down and you talk to them, and you ask them about
It's
stuff.
funny, man. It's long form content seems to be revealing some interesting things about human behavior, because you constantly hear that people have short attention spans, right? There's a study that came out a few years ago that said that people had the attention spans. I think it was something silly, like it was less than like some animal, like a clam or some dumb thing. Like it wasn't a clam, but it was compared to this animal, it was like less than 5 seconds attention span, right?
Yeah.
And people were like, "Oh my gosh, that makes so much sense because that's why we have to have commercials every 3 minutes or whatever, and blah blah blah." But it actually turns out that long form content, like long form podcasts like this conversation, people actually are super into it.
Yeah.
And part of it is because a lot of it is accessible audio only. So those people who are commuting for 2 hours,
Yeah.
guess what they can do? They can't read a book, they can't watch a video, but they can listen to the podcast
Yeah.
for 2 hours. So
Yeah.
it actually is a lot more accessible. So there are some people who are comparing long form, not just long form podcasts, but like the creation of content, including long form podcasts, as like a new Gutenberg revolution. Like the Gutenberg invented the printing press,
Ah,
and that
okay.
changed the way information was disseminated
Yeah.
at the time. And now it seems like doing long form conversations is helping for the dissemination of ideas.
That might be the neat thing.
In a way, yeah, that's like opening up this new horizon of saying, you know
They're
what?
growing, right? How many podcasts?
Oh, there's
Hundreds of thousands.
oh yeah, hundreds of thousands. It's like, a lot of us had thought about doing podcasts a long time ago, but it just we didn't.
It wasn't.
It
a
was
thing.
too complicated. It was like you had to do all this stuff, and now it's becoming more accessible.
Yeah.
And now it's like, okay, now people can tell their stories. They can go out there and talk about these interesting things, and you can get all these different perspectives. Obviously, caveat emptor, you do your buyer beware. You can't believe everything you hear necessarily, but
You can believe everything I say. Okay, that's my guarantee right there.
I'll actually back that up because you're a very honest person, and that's one of the things that we're dedicated to being honest people. But going back to the conversation, long form seems to be proving incorrect the fact that people have short attention spans. It seems that people have been made to have short attention spans. It served a different purpose,
Yeah.
and now having long form content can serve the purpose for disseminating, other ideas.
Yes.
And the exploration. It's almost like it opens up the process of thinking
Yeah.
through conversation, and that's where people can explore new ideas as people are out loud thinking out loud, basically.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting change
Yeah.
that's happening. A lot of things are changing right now.
I don't know if people know this, but what made Einstein special, I mean, he was a genius, right? But not just that. I think it was a combination of he was a genius and he had this ability to think. He would sit for hours. Like, he'd spend 8 hours thinking.
Yeah.
And that's how he would come up with this
Well,
stuff.
if you think about it now, think about how many of us sit quietly and think. That's extremely rare, and you think
Nobody
about
does it.
No one does it, and so it's not a wonder why a lot of the kind of more formal institutions have actually been fairly stagnant and as of late. And so it's because there's this need for people. It's almost like if we've been sold a story that people are just dumb and only the experts are smart.
Yeah.
And everyone else we're just passive consumers and we're not very intelligent.
Yeah.
And we've been sold this story since we were young, and some of us have believed that we have to look up to the experts for them to tell us what to
The
think.
answers. Oh,
Yeah,
I see.
but it turns out that long form content is showing that actually we can grasp more of the information that the experts said that we couldn't understand.
Oh, I see.
And in fact, in some cases, we're actually generating solutions that they cannot generate.
Oh.
Because many times they're blinded by authority, they're blinded by institutional
Structure.
institutional structures and boundaries, and they may not have the freedom to explore certain things when in this realm that possibility is there.
Mm.
It's really interesting.
So we can turn out to be smarter just by watching this podcast.
These claims have not been evaluated by the FDA.
Yes.
Put a disclaimer.
Yes. Interview J.B. Strubble. Oh, that's so weird. I mean, that is not. That's a long shot, but it's not so long that I'd say it's impossible, because that'd be a huge he's now moved on from Tesla and recycling batteries and etc. Well, here's the crazy thing. I know someone that is very close to him, that are like friends, so not totally impossible. I say that's kind of likely. I think if I wanted to and I would pursue it, I probably could. I have so many questions for that. Well, do I? I would have some questions. Mainly, why the 18650? I have a bunch of reasons why I think they did it, but I would totally love to hear it from himself. Directly from the mouth, the horse's mouth or whatever.
No offense.
Let me take a quick break just to change the battery on that camera over there, right? And then we'll come back right back.
So you have more power and more effective power, plus you have a broader power band.
Yeah.
So it's fun because we both have advantages.
Right.
Like I've got a weight advantage,
Right.
and
It's gonna
that's
be
it.
close.
You've got every other advantage goes to you, but I got a weight advantage. And I lost 30 pounds.
Oh, pretty good. I thought you looked a little skinnier this round.
Dude, if I win by this much, I'll be like, yeah. Okay, well, post-race analysis. I don't think either of us expected those results.
But still, it's quick. It's very quick.
That was
I'm glad you guys
awesome.
can make it. Yeah,
I
it's fun.
honestly totally expected to lose, and by no means, both of these cars are super fun.
So you want to build a DIY Powerwall. I'll show you how to do one. Using these as batteries and these as your inverter, you can build a small DIY Powerwall. Let's get going. Do not connect these backwards, and whatever you do, do not short these cells. Each one on a dead short can do about 300 amps times 8. That equals a very bad time. Unless you're looking to melt stuff, then it would be a really good time with fireworks and all. But you probably don't want that, so do not short these. All right, carry on with the build. Here I'm using some Kapton tape between the 4 separate groups of cells to further prevent a short between them. The only thing here preventing said short is one thin layer of cell.
So you have more power and more effective power, plus you have a broader power band.
Yeah.
All right, Brian is at the restroom. He went for the restroom right now. We grabbed some water. But while he's gone, I want to let you know that I'm going to give away some of these battery packs for those of you to reward you guys. So those guys that came by and kind of put up with us and our nonsense for all this time. How long have we been on? It's been a while, no? I haven't loaded up my usual screen here, so it doesn't tell me. I just didn't have time to load up the usual way that I do it. But let's read some of your comments here. I hate long form, that's only for the rich. Well, yeah, sometimes you would have time. Like I know that I've been listening to, because I would sit there and work on my car or build batteries or something like that. And so then I have time to do it, and so that's why I guess I'm rich. And in some ways I am, I guess, I mean, adding some perspective. Struble been dumping Tesla for a while. Wow, yeah. Naveen Ravelli, if you can find him. Oh, who's Naveen Ravelli? I'm gonna have to look that up. 18650 because AC propulsion not too far away in San Dimas. Do Tom Gage as well. Yeah, I would also like to interview that guy.
I saw that guy one time. No, not like in my real life. But
Who?
that guy, Tom. Doesn't he do like? Doesn't he have a channel?
Oh, what's happening here? Wait a minute, you might not be live. Oh, we didn't test this. Hold on, guys, let me test
Oh,
this.
because of like.
Yeah, I know. Let's hold on. Let me fix this, guys.
So you have more power and more effective power, plus you have a broader power band.
Yeah.
So it's fun because we both have advantages.
Right.
Like I've got a weight advantage,
Right.
and
It's gonna
that's
be
it.
close.
You've got every other advantage goes to you, but I got a weight advantage. And I lost 30 pounds. Not
Oh,
one.
good. I thought you looked a little skinnier this round.
Dude, if I win by this much, I'll be like, yeah. Okay, well, post-race analysis. I don't think either of us expected those results.
But still, it's quick. It's very quick.
That was
Yeah, I'm glad you
awesome.
guys can make it. Yeah,
I
it's fun.
honestly totally expected to lose, and by no means, both of these cars are super fun.
So you want to build a DIY Powerwall. I'll show you how to do one. Using these as batteries and these as your inverter, you can build a small DIY Powerwall. Let's get going. Do not connect these backwards, and whatever you do, do not short these cells. Each one on a dead short can do about 300 amps times 8. That equals a very bad time. Unless you're looking to... There we go. We're back. And I think it works. Yeah, it works. So, I think we're going to call it quits here. How long have we been in? So, can you see it there? I'm going to see. If I can find it on my thing.
Let me take a look at it.
Crystal just said that she's home, so I guess she wants us to go over there to eat. She's not gonna come here. She's kind of hardcore. She's like, I'm not going over there.
Let's see.
Let me ask her.
trying to
No,
find
let me ask her. Maybe not. Maybe she'll say, yeah, I'll take it over there. Have to
That doesn't give me the time.
go home.
2 hours.
2 hours? Oh, okay. That's nothing. We did 3 hours the other day. We did 3 hours on that build, which, by the way, it's gonna go out pretty soon. If you want it, it's gonna go out pretty soon. 59 watching. Yeah. So does it say? Okay, that's nothing. We did 3 hours the other day. Okay, so it works. Yeah, it doesn't tell me. It's weird.
Yeah, I thought it would have a timer.
Usually I load up the screen that from within my, thing, but I'm not logged into this computer and I don't know if I know the password
Oh,
enough
so
to.
you're just on YouTube watching yourself.
Yeah, that's why.
Okay. I thought it was more like okay.
Yeah, that's why it loads up like.
I was gonna say because before you used to look at the stats and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I don't have it and it's here. I did it in this one.
Oh, okay. That's
but this one's about to die. It's just, I'm not set up, you know what I mean?
That's good though. It's good practice.
Good practice. And I don't think we did too bad. Once you get, like, rid of all the technical nonsense, then it should be pretty good. I want to kind of, I don't know. I don't know what people think about it. I know that some people are not going to like it, but if you liked it, can you post here so that I can read your comment and see if we did good? I have no idea if I can conversate in a manner that is enjoyable to other people. You know what I mean? Like, I have no idea. Again, I'm so in my
I think it just depends
own
on
thing.
who you invite. You
Oh,
know?
yeah, I think so. I think it has
think
to.
that's highly dependent on that.
You did much better than I thought you were going to do. I didn't have that high hopes for you. No. Yeah, I think it does. Definitely, it helps if you have someone interesting to talk to,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Um,
definitely helps.
Yeah, so, but what did you guys think about this AC propulsion? Yeah, that's what they were saying. I do want to interview that guy. He's in San Dimas, Alan Cocconi.
I talked to one of the guys from there once.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So Alan Cocconi's the main dude. He still works there. Supposedly you can just show up and you might have a conversation. He's the guy that started making modern electric vehicles. Yeah, and then Elon bought their technology.
Yeah.
He didn't end up using it, but it was a starting point. You know, he ended up just redoing it and then starting from scratch, but based on that stuff.
Interesting.
And he's so close by here, yeah, and it would be interesting to kind of ask him about those early days of the electric car that most people don't know about. You know, now it's cool to have a Tesla, but it's by all the non-cool people. It's by a bunch of rich people. Well, first a bunch of rich people, and at least rich people have the ability to be appreciative. You know, it's like, oh, this is a cool thing. You know, and many will know maybe the history, right?
Yeah.
But like now with the Model 3, it's just everyone. People don't know. They just, oh, this is a cool thing to do. I'm gonna do it, right?
Yeah.
And you know, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying, you know, they don't come from the culture of like, let's do something different, you know, or let's innovate.
Yeah.
They're just like total consumer, right? It was just a total. I was eating some of these things. And so there's nothing wrong with that. It's just it's not as cool in my eyes, anyways, because you know. EV1 was EV propulsion before the EV1. Oh, I don't know. Maybe it was about the same. EV1 is the one that was done by
The Ford one. I mean the Chevy one.
Yeah, General Motors.
Well, I mean, I don't know a ton about the history, but I do know that I think the first electric cars came out when the Model T first came out.
Oh yeah, at the turn of the century.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
This is a really old technology.
But it was all based on DC
Yeah,
motors
it
and
was all
stuff.
DC,
This is like new stuff, AC induction motors and stuff, right? So, I think that is what I consider, you know,
The
a
beginning
modern
of the modern.
modern electric cars. Lithium batteries
Yeah,
and
especially
lithium batteries with AC, you know, brushless motors essentially.
Yeah.
That's the modern car. Tesla didn't make it, they didn't invent it, didn't even pioneer it. There were other people that did it. They've done clever things. They pioneer in the fact that they were crazy enough to do it,
Yeah.
right? And that's enough.
Well, yeah, because no one wanted to do it for how long?
No one wanted to do it.
20 years?
Well, the batteries have been around for a long time. The 1990, I think that's when the lithium ion battery, modern lithium ion battery, I think came into like commercial production.
But they were using it mostly for like what?
Laptops.
computers and stuff, yeah.
Laptops. This is the original laptop battery cell.
But that's the funny thing about
Hmm?
what we were talking about before, which is like being able to innovate and seeing from one domain looking into the other domain. Is that sometimes you have people who saying, no, look, those are laptop batteries. They're laptop batteries. That's all they can do.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait a minute, but it's energy. They're batteries. Like you can use batteries on other things. No, but these are laptop batteries. They're for laptops. And you're like, I know, but you can use them on these other things.
Yeah.
And for some people, it's so hard to make that transition. For some people, it's like, no, they're laptop batteries. for laptops. And you're like, yeah, I know, but if you use super easy, you see, no, it's just energy storage
Yeah.
in this container, and then you can other things that use energy, you can then use it there.
Yeah.
No, and it's like some people find it really hard to
Make the jump.
to make the jump from one domain
Yeah.
to the next.
It takes hacks like us. Like, see, I'm like always like, oh, this batteries, can we use them for this other thing? Oh, this computer, can we use it a different way? I never want to use it the way it was meant to. For some reason, I'm like, okay, that's boring. How do we use this in a different
So
way?
that means that as soon as you get any product, you violate the warranty right away because it says do not use other than intended.
Yes, that's my mode of operation here. It's you void warranties. The first thing you do is you like take it apart. You're like, how is it put together? Okay, what else can we do here? How do we make it better?
Yeah.
You know.
That's good. That's what I like. Yeah. And that's the way you find out, what they're capable of, and that's when you can find out how it ticks,
Yeah.
because then you get to see the details. Like when you took apart that battery, I just saw that video, the one you took apart.
Which one?
The what was that? The EFD something, the one that you were.
Oh, the one that I'm giving that I just give away. Right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And it's like, because you take it apart and you're like, let's see if it's designed well. You take it apart,
Yeah.
and it's like from the outside everything looks nice.
Yeah.
That's the easy part, is making it look nice from the outside. Once you start taking it apart, you're like, let's see what's inside.
Yeah.
And then you get to the cells, and then you're like, oh, I thought these were going to be better cells or something.
Yeah.
And
Nondescript Chinese cells. They might be okay.
yeah, they might be.
Here's the other thing. I think that is a mistake that I made on that last device that I took apart, and I was like, oh, these are not, brand name cells.
Yeah, no, but I think you kind of said something like, they might be.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
I should have tested them. I should have tested them on camera and then
Oh, you still can.
proven because my actions actually had an effect in that company. They actually had to go and change their they had to go change their website, the description on the website, because they shouldn't have done that. They shouldn't have said they're going to use Samsung cells and then not
they
have
said
them.
that.
Apparently they did. I didn't know this. I was just like, I'm going to take it apart. I'm going to see what cells they have in there. Oh, they don't have brand name cells. They have some Chinese cells, right? Now, they claim that those Chinese cells were high quality, and that's the reason why they changed it. They were cheaper, but they're not name brand cells. And apparently they had that in all their
That's a big
websites.
difference. That's a big difference, because
No, that's big.
like from a brand perspective, like having Samsung cells is like a stamp of quality and assurance that these are not going to blow up in your face. Like that's,
Yeah.
and they still might, obviously, because there's still defects that you get in some of them, but it's like a stamp of approval. It's trust.
Yeah.
You have, unmarked cells, there's no trust there. And so that's a huge difference.
Yeah.
It's the difference between someone buying them and someone not buying them.
Yeah.
So that's, it's good that they changed it, and they probably shouldn't have had it like that in the first place, but.
Well, originally they were supposed to. They had, I guess, they had plans of using name brand cells, but
Yeah.
then once they went into production, apparently,
Once they went into production, apparently in order to cut costs, and maybe they did their test, and they're like, oh, these cells are just as good, high quality, but they're less, costly. So then they went with those. But of course, they didn't tell the.
Yeah, and it could have
the
been
audience.
possible that it could have been a production issue as well. Like they could have asked for Samsung cells, and then overseas in production, they're like, "Oh, we can cut a few." It's
Yeah.
a big deal because they may not. I've done production.
who's gonna take the thing apart?
Yeah, I mean, I've
Yeah.
worked with people doing production overseas, and it's like there are those considerations where they're like, there's no consideration on brand. There's only consideration on the engineering side,
Yeah.
right? Which is kind of their job. But those kinds of decisions are brand decisions as well.
Yeah.
And so they shouldn't be making those kinds of decisions without,
Yeah. Yeah.
conferring
And
with
they
someone.
didn't count on me buying the thing and taking it apart and then showing the world.
Now everyone knows that they should count on that because
and that was a unit that I bought myself. I didn't, I had no, there was no deal between them. That was my product. I bought it. Then I'm like, let me see what it's inside, and then I changed it. I just didn't know that I was stepping on their toes. And they had to change it. So this time around, they did send me this unit, but it's the same thing. I don't want to be like, owe them anything, right? So I'm like, no, this unit, I'm not even gonna keep it. I'm gonna give it away. I don't want to keep it. I don't want to benefit from the thing, because then that's gonna taint my view on it, whatever, right? I'm like, I want to be unbiased, and it is. I mean, that was my personal opinion. It's like, it's a good unit, it's put together, but it's not based on nothing. I took it apart. I saw that someone posted a comment, so biased or so I don't know what or what, and I'm like, it's based on facts. It's based on the performance things. I tested it in front of you in the video.
There's no reasoning with trolls. So,
Yeah. I was like, nah, delete. I don't want to read your stupid comment. I mean, if you had a valid comment, I would address it. But why don't I?
And that's a very good word choice. If they have a valid comment, because that's the one thing with argumentation is like you can make all kinds of arguments about all kinds of things, but not all of them are valid.
Yes.
If they're valid, then we can have a conversation.
Yeah.
Even if you think it's valid, we can at least talk about that part.
Yeah.
But if you're not even willing to discuss whether it's valid or not, it's like, well, then there's no really a conversation happening. You can't really learn from that.
Yeah.
I'm like, I refuse your reality. No. I refuse your existence. Anyways, let's cut this short. Let's give away some of these batteries. Look at that, 47. Woo! Okay, this is gonna be easy. I'm gonna choose. Hopefully the people that are in here, they want batteries.
When you ask them.
All right, here we
Who
go.
wants batteries?
I know who wants batteries. They have batteries in their thing.
Oh.
J Simon 831. You just won. Oh my God, I can't post because I don't have the thing in there. Anyways, J Simon 81. You want a couple of these batteries. I'm gonna send them to you. Email me, jhu@jack35, and I will send you some batteries. Here we go. This guy has been here and he's part of the channel. Battery addiction. There you go. I'm gonna send you some of these batteries too. Email me, jhu@jack35, and then I'll send you a couple of these batteries. So there we go. Those are the winners.
Nice.
Of tonight's long chat.
This is the inaugural.
Oh, inaugural podcast.
It sounds fancier, right? Inaugural
Yes.
podcast.
I'm not fancy, but
But at least we can use fancy terminology.
yeah.
Okay, guys, thank you for joining me. Hopefully, it was semi-interesting or interesting to some of you. I don't know if I'm gonna keep it here. If I anger so many of you guys that you guys start, you start getting back at me. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Again, like, I'm not a stranger to angering my audience because I do this every few years. I tend to change the subject. I tend to change how I do things because I can never stay in one place and do things the same way ever. I'm always trying new things. That is why you like me, essentially. You might not know that, but trust me, this is the reason why you like me and you're watching the stuff that I put out, right? It's because I'm trying new things. And I know it might seem weird to just, support something new that you don't know where it's going. But for me, it just feels the same all the time. I'm just like, I'm gonna piss off a bunch of people. Okay, well, it's the same thing as last time, So anyways, I want to thank you for joining me. If you're watching this, I want to thank you for watching this. This is a new thing that I'm trying out. I promise I will try to get better at it if I'm not super good at it yet. But, practice makes perfect, right?
And he'll promise to try to get better guests.
Better guess.
Than me.
No, you were good. Right?
People that
Brian was good.
you may have heard about.
How? You want to plug in your stuff in there? Oh, actually, your stuff. It's on.
I,
It's on my videos.
I hacked into your site, into your YouTube channel, and plugged myself without even telling you.
So Brian is actually, I have a link to your site on all my videos, right? Because see, I'm supposed, if anyone ever takes me seriously enough to try to do some branding or advertise on my channel, then I don't want to talk to him. I'm gonna send them to Brian because he knows how to make those deals. I don't know how to make those deals, right? I don't. And so, yeah, if you're interested, if you're watching this and you want to advertise in my channel, I get a lot of people that are interested in batteries. I kind of got all the people I thought, but no, this is a big world. There's a lot of people and stuff. So yeah, if you're interested in advertising my channel and you want to talk to someone that knows what they're talking about, yeah, click on my link on the bottom of this video and then, get in contact with Brian. He knows what he's doing. Right?
Yeah, I do. It's,
Okay. And you have your podcast?
Yeah, I have my podcast. It's called The Archimedes Effect. It's available wherever you listen to podcasts. Yeah, it's on all the major platforms.
Really?
Yeah, there's like 15 episodes so far.
Wow.
But it's, and hopefully, you'll join me in one maybe?
Yeah.
All right.
Oh yeah, that's a more legit podcast than this one. I'm not in any platform other than here. So,
Yeah, at least they can see you though. Mine haven't been able to see me yet. So.
oh, yours is only audio.
Yeah, so I want to start the video part. So.
That's right.
But yeah.
It's really easy. You just put a camera and then you just do it.
And make sure you wear a shirt. You don't have to wear pants because you're sitting down. Right?
Oh yeah, no pants. No pants needed. Maybe that's what I need to call it. No pants required.
No pants required.
What if I call my podcast No Pants Required?
And if you're listening to it, then you don't have to wear pants either, actually.
Yeah, no, it's all around. No pants required for any of the stuff that we're gonna do. All right. Well, that's tentative.
Don't lock that in stone.
Tentative
So,
name for
work in
it.
progress. That's not part of the branding process, by the way.
That's right. No pants required. I like it. I like it. There might actually be one already. Here's the thing. There's so many podcasts that there might be one. All right, guys. Thank you for joining me. Email me the two winners. I'll send you some batteries. And other than that, we'll see you guys in the next video. I'm still going to do those videos that I've been saying I'm going to do. Nothing's changed, except now I'm going to do some podcasts every once in a while. And then, all right? Okay. Thank you. Bye. We'll see you.
Bye.